city. It's time, ain't no turning back. Rewind, it's all or nothing, put it all on the line. I see it, I want it, I take it, it's mine. It's a Super Bowl. Who you got, who you rooting for? You remember with us, yeah, we toe to toe. Look and see them, they shook, man, they losing hope. Sin City, but I got with me, yeah, the pressure on, still calm in me. All the blood, sweat, tears hard on me, but the highs and lows making harmony. Hold up, whoa, y'all not hearing me, whoa. It ain't no fear in me, I hear them cheering. 60,000 in the stands, 100 million tuned in. It don't get any bigger than this. Ends with the NIL, you could tell my opponent I wish him well. I'm a big deal with it, can't you tell? Got them maxed out in the NFL. Couple rings and mementos. Whole team keep it 10 toes. Got my head high at the same time, keep my head down, gotta stay low. Sin City, but I got with me, yeah, the pressure on, still calm in me. All the blood, sweat, tears hard on me, but the highs and lows making harmony. Hold up, whoa, y'all are not hearing me, whoa. It ain't no fear in me, I hear them cheering. 60,000 in the stands, 100 million tuned in. It don't get any bigger than this. It don't get any bigger. It don't get any bigger than this. Touchdown, do my dance, whoa. 60,000 in the stands, whoa. It don't get any bigger than this.
Sometimes you got to get back to your roots. Remember where it all started.
Is it all a fever dream?
NASCAR Thunder 2000.
Our goal was simple. Make it authentic. The stories.
And there's a fight using lessons learned from his father.
The fans. The rivalries.
Got into the side of the tree.
That feeling of being part of it all. That's why we went to work on this game. We've heard you. It's been a long time since we've had a game that captures what the sport is all about. Well, time is now. This one's built for the fan, for anybody who wants to experience what it's really like. All right, let's go. From the sound to the speed to the venue.
The Daytona International Speedway.
Back at Darlington Raceway.
All there's left to do is fire it up.
For 8 remaining drivers, what matters is the moment.
And he's done it again!
Steeled focus on detail.
Going to Phoenix!
Driven by heart, steered by steady hands. With a resolve to make a run for the ages.
Can you believe the finish that we are about to see?
The NASCAR playoffs continue in Martinsville on NBC and Peacock.
Racing isn't just a game. It's a way of life. Every lap, every moment. Practice is about consistency. Winning doesn't come easy.
Yo!
My turn, Bubba.
Feel the road. Own the race. Logitech G wheels and pedals available now on Amazon.
Tonight, on Countdown to Green, we look back at who survived and advanced Week 1 of the Clash on the Beach. The crew previews the semifinals and finals of Week 2. And we have wheels to give away with Logitech G. All of that and more. Coming up on Countdown to Green.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to Countdown to Green, presented by Logitech G for Week 2 of the eNASCAR College iRacing Series, powered by the Players College League. Clash at the beach. Daytona International Speedway in Daytona Beach, Florida is where we will be racing tonight. James Pike alongside Blake McCandless, Taylor Burris. Taylor, I'll start with you tonight. We're going to find out who is the best of the best in super speedway racing in the eNASCAR College iRacing Series.
A lot of great opportunities happening here today as we look forward to some exciting racing action from start to finish. A lot of drivers worked hard to get here. Now it's time to find out who will be at the top when we get done with the checkered flag tonight.
And for those chasing a season-long points championship, Blake, yes, you'd like to try and get the win if you can, but making sure you get maximum points that you have a shot to win the season-long title at Homestead next April, that's incredibly important here, given how much of a wild card Daytona could be.
Well, and one of the biggest hurdles was just being able to get to this night, to be able to try and get to where you can collect those points. But I think there's a lot of drivers here in this college series as well. Anytime you come to a race like this or Talladega, the one thing that is available is opportunity. So not just to be a part of the field, but to take advantage, to finish up front, to gather as many points as possible. Because at Daytona or Talladega, we know anybody can end up in victory lane.
From 120 drivers, 39 are in the mix tonight. They're all going to earn points. And a friendly reminder that NASCAR 25 is now available on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and Series S. If you pick up the Gold Edition, it features the full base game and the Season Pass, which includes a variety of in-game currency and bonuses to help start you on your way in your career mode, as well as 3 DLC packs featuring over 230 paint schemes and fire suits. And the PC version of NASCAR 25 releases on Steam on November 11th. You can visit NASCAR25.com for more information. Blake, have you had the opportunity to touch this, to watch other people play this, get a sense of what folks are getting into with the new game?
So I'm personally waiting for the Steam release to get my copy of it, but I was fortunate enough to stop by somebody's house who had the console version of the game. I believe it's on Xbox, and yes, it's just a very true, authentic driving experience, something that we haven't had, I feel like, in a very long time, and it's just a lot of fun, Taylor.
Absolutely. I'm also in the same boat as you there, Blake, waiting for the Steam release. But I know this is a great opportunity for bringing in not just, of course, the current fans of NASCAR, but also helping bringing in new fans. I know for a fact with some of my friends and family that it's a great way to let them learn about the sport that we all loved here tonight and that we're showcasing with the NASCAR trucks.
I think our console people have been waiting for a while. The game was top 10 in both PlayStation and Xbox stores week of release. So plenty of excitement for that. And if, in fact, you want to race in any of those with wheel, guess what? We have a way that we might be able to help you. Because if you are a driver that is registered and competed in at least one of the time attacks in the eNASCAR College iRacing Series, you will automatically be entered for a chance to win a racing prize pack, including a Logitech G923 True Force racing wheel and pedal set for the Xbox or PC, and iRacing credits. And more information and the full set of rules are available at pcl.gg/pages/eNASCAR. So, great opportunity to get involved with the wheel. Michael Conti won the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series title on a wheel very similar to the G923. So it's championship pedigree, pretty well proven as we take a look at the schedule and where we've been and where we are going to go. We started off at Charlotte. Tonight we're at Daytona. Iowa rounds out the fall semester of competition. That's our November tournament. And then 3 tournaments coming up, Taylor Burris, in the spring at Michigan, Martinsville, and then the finale at Homestead, Miami.
Absolutely. Of course, we're going to wrap up the action tonight before we conclude the 2025 season at Iowa Speedway and then ramp it back up here in 2026 with 3 iconic and unique tracks that are going to test the United, every single driver here competing. But Blake, we got to also talk about the unique format that we're here seeing once again being put into place as we're on to week 2.
Yeah, I think fans getting familiar with this. Again, the round that took place before last week took place. We got through the middle part of that graphic last week. We eliminated a number of drivers going into this night, but now we are on the right side. Week 2, the final week of the Clash on the Beach here at Daytona. We're in the semifinals. Drivers have 2 chances tonight to try and qualify for the final round and points-paying feature that will feature 25 drivers, and the top 6 of those will be the ones that take home all of that scholarship money. You can see a visual representation right there. Still 3 rounds to go here in these semis. One final chance of which we will take the top 10 to advance to the final round. And then, of course, as mentioned, 25 drivers competing for all those points, all that prestige, and James, what I love, all the scholarship money that's on the line. Pay up, baby.
I think we also just love the fact that these drivers get the opportunities that we didn't have when we were students. I know you would have absolutely been competing in the series and maybe winning some scholarship money. Taylor Burris, here's a look at what happened in week 1. A lot of bumping, a lot of shoving, a lot of beating, a lot of banging, a lot of wrecking, but we whittled it down from 120 to 39.
Absolutely, and it was a lot of chaos, but there you see one of our first winners, Carson Bauer, representing Purdue University, taking home one of the race wins in this event. And then, of course, the chaos. Unfortunately, Alabama winning against Tennessee, not doing too well here at the high banks of Daytona. Same thing with the Rutgers Scarlet Knight Machine as well, having some issues with watching out with the chaos that has ensued. A lot of these drivers competing here as you ride on board with University of Northwestern Ohio driver and Matthew Morton, just trying to avoid the chaos. A lot of drivers struggling with watching their surroundings, what I was able to gather from this past week in round 1. So hopefully they can be able to work their way through and maybe avoid some of the chaos that we saw last week.
I think one of the biggest points that we saw, and just looking at a lot of these highlights, Taylor Burris, just the importance of staying in your lane as we get a look at our defending champion of the College Series, Cal State Fullerton's Logan Clampett, looking for another titanic performance in the College Series. He's already got a few of them to his name in seasons past, but looking for an opportunity to claim a tournament and add to his already illustrious College Series career. Clampett and everyone else getting set to qualify here in the not too distant future. And then from qualifying, we'll sort out everyone and run our 3 semifinals. This is Converse University's Jake Cummings from Pottstown, North Carolina, practicing pit entry. And if for whatever reason, if we have to have a pit stop under green flag, not that we should, but always good to practice entering pit road and making sure that you come in under pit road speed limit. These are the 39 that made it in. Carson Bowers, winner of the Group 1 second round race, Taylor Burst, and a lot of firepower on this list.
Absolutely. Carson Bauer, we touched on. We have several competitors from the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, such as Daniel Falkingham and Dylan Ault. Zach Sprouts, who we've seen win at Super Speedway competition, also here tonight with us. John Forbes Jr. as well, another major competitor on the Super Speedway. As we look on to page 2, of course, Connor Yarashak, which is one of the top drivers competing as well. Jacob Bradley, Abraham Vila as well to keep an eye on. And, of course, the rivalry that we're all looking forward to seeing, UNOH versus UNC Charlotte, once again going head-to-head here tonight.
Yep, we will see 49ers and UNOH drivers represented in the semifinals as well. Let's turn our attention now to the Logitech G track analysis, and for that we turn to our resident driver of our group, Blake McCandless, will take us around Daytona International Speedway.
Seems like it should be simple, but from what we saw a week ago, Daytona International Speedway can still be a tricky place to try and figure out. Despite the 18 degrees of banking in the tri-oval, that's probably where we saw the most action a week ago. 31 degrees in the corners for a venue that is historic as any for the World Center of Racing. Remember, it was Parker White for the University of Maine at Augusta that took home the win last year in the College Series. That will not be the case here in 2025. It'll be a new winner representing here at Daytona.
Someone new to add their name to the history books, and lots of storylines that we are going to have the opportunity to keep an eye on over the course of this evening. So we turn our attention to the storylines of the evening, and Blake McCandless, we will start with you and keep an eye on the first big piece of news that we're looking at, which is that we've got a lot of new schools represented in week 2 of action here at the Clash on the Beach.
Well, what was one of our talking points a week ago was UNOH and Charlotte, the amount of drivers they had transferring in. There are 38 unique schools here in this final out of 39 drivers. So it has been it's been tough going for teammates to try and work with each other. This is one thing that we thought we would see coming into Daytona, a place where you have to work together, and yet here we are, 38 drivers, 39 drivers, 38 different schools. There's not going to be a lot of friends out there for anybody, Taylor, to try and work through the field together.
Yeah, absolutely. There's only a small couple of groups that will work together that we know for sure. A couple of schools from the same group as well to keep an eye on. But the one we have to watch is UNOH versus UNCC. And there's only 15 drivers who competed in the last week. In week 1, 3 of them transferred, 2 from UNOH and 1 from UNCC. So right now, UNOH has been one of the top teams right now as far as bringing drivers in from multiple schools compared to UNC. So right now, I have to say, the UNOH racers have been the top of the field and the top of the class between these two, Blake.
We talked about this going into Daytona a week ago, group projects and being able to work together as a team. Well, what did they learn? What were they able to take away from being able to go through all these different heats to be able to advance to these semifinals? They had several opportunities to do so, a lot of time in the draft, a lot of time in the pack. Can they take those lessons learned? Because like we mentioned, trouble in the tri-oval, trouble with drivers lining up and being able to give bumps. These trucks seem simple, but they're anything but when they're lined up and you're having to give those bumps in the draft. You have to be so precise. Let's see if drivers took some lessons learned from some of the issues we saw last week and can correct that tonight to make it to the final 25.
Absolutely. We have also some major things to keep an eye on is the attendance level. 18 new drivers competing compared to the last round. So that means new chances for drivers to score points, and that will shake up the point standings significantly as we take a look at the current point standings after the last round in Charlotte.
And this is going to shake up significantly. I think one point being that Dylan Basin, James Pike, is not here. He did not make it through to this round at Daytona.
So Basin is going to lose some ground. Yarashak, the most likely person to take over the points lead, albeit marginally Taylor Burris, because the finishing positions here are going to be so wild, so crazy, as will this race, as will this set of races in this tournament. It's Daytona. Anything can happen, more so here than anywhere else we go.
You're talking about probably the biggest race where we'll see the biggest point shakeup after tonight. A lot of drivers, once we move into tracks like Michigan, Iowa, and all that, it'll kind of level back at what we're normally used to seeing. Here tonight, we could see drivers work their way through.
We'll see if they can do just that. What was the mantra last week? Don't get eliminated, survive and advance. That's been a theme throughout this 2025 season. That's going to prove no more important tonight at Daytona to get through to the last round, avoid all the chaos, and be there at the end. That's the other thing that Daytona is always known for.
Time to rock and roll. We are going to take a quick break. We'll be back on the other side with coverage of Week 2 of the Clash on the Beach for the eNASCAR College iRacing Series, powered by Play vs. College League. More action from Daytona coming up after this.
For 8 remaining drivers, what matters is the moment.
And he's done it again!
Steeled focus on detail.
Denny Hamlin is going to Phoenix!
Driven by heart, steered by steady hands. With a resolve to make a run for the ages.
Can you believe the finish that we are about to see?
The NASCAR playoffs continue in Martinsville on NBC and Peacock.
Racing isn't just a game. It's a way of life. Every lap, every moment. Practice is about consistency. Winning doesn't come easy.
Yo! My turn, Bubba.
Feel the road. Own the race. Logitech G wheels and pedals available now on Amazon.
Hey, now's the time, the kid on the rise, the top spot, when I see it, it's mine, I celebrate, yeah, I'm taking a fine, I can't tame, can't put me in line, gotta focus, standing on business, it's no emotion, full speed with it, can I coast to the championship, bring toast.
Welcome to Week 2 of the tournament, the Clash on the Beach at Daytona. We're down to 39 drivers. With $3 grand on the line, they're looking for every chance to bring home the win.
The time is now, whenever I can't look back, it's mine forever, I'm ready to stack, it's not even letting the team on my back. The time is now, whenever I'm making it count, counting times and counting me out, straight up the mud, I'm making it out, I gotta get it, the time is now.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to iRacing's coverage of Week 2 of the second tournament for the 2025-26 eNASCAR College iRacing Series, powered by Play vs. College League. The Clash on the Beach, live from the virtual Daytona International Speedway in Daytona Beach, Florida. So much action on tap this evening. I'm Jay Spike, joined by Taylor Burris and Blake McCandless. Tonight, we are going to send off some scholarship money, and we are going to find out who reigns supreme on the beaches of Daytona.
Absolutely, and it's going to be exciting to see here who is going to be pumped up, ready to go. Turn up the volume on that fight song to get yourself ready to go and have the shot at the chance of the scholarship money here tonight, and work your way up into the point standings for some of the new drivers that are making their debut in the semifinals.
Everyone scores points this evening, Blake McCandless. That's part of the reward for making it to Week 2, but from the 120 that entered competition last week, If you can get yourself just that little bit further up the standings tonight, it can make a huge difference, especially because this is a place where everyone has a little bit more opportunity than most.
Well, again, you have to just fight so hard to get to this point to be able to try and score these points. And I think the theme throughout this 2025 fall and spring semester is going to be, can you survive to get to this point every single week? Because we even see with Dylan Basin, 40 points last week. He gets nothing this week or this round because he wasn't able to advance. So just being able to be a part of it, put yourself in position and survive to the end, that's going to be the key throughout this season, especially tonight at Daytona.
Give yourself a chance and an opportunity to potentially walk away with the greatest share of scholarship money. Here's a look at a driver who has some experience winning on a plate track. John Forbes Jr. out of Rancho Santa Margarita, California, who won for Saddleback College at Talladega Superspeedway back in the spring. Taylor Burr is looking for a second career drafting track win.
Absolutely, and he is going to be one to watch here as qualifying gets underway. I'm really excited to see what he can do. Of course, we know him as well to be a good friend with a couple of other drivers that are competing as well. Let's see how well they work together to work their way up through the field, depending on their qualifying. And hold on, as we see, Clampett and Old are one of the front runners in qualifying right now.
Good look here at Timothy Holmes, who also has experience in the College Series. Blake, you raced with him a little bit this year in Coke Series competition. What should the audience know about Timmy Holmes and the way he goes about his business?
Well, we know Timmy Holmes is going to be aggressive, somebody that's going to make moves. He's going to try to make things happen. We saw it a couple of weeks ago, the Queen City Crown, and especially here in the College Series. I think these are the type of races that are really well-suited to his driving style, his skill. And just look at the leaderboard as we continue to roll on here. You talk about just hundreds, small, minute details making a difference. That's what we're seeing here. Dylan Alt, fastest at a 463, but just look all the way down to the drivers who have completed a time. There's not even half a tenth down to 18th right now.
Yeah, it's a 46 to 56. It's a full 10 separating the 30 drivers that have set times so far. This is our schedule for the College Series. All our tournaments, all the weeks will be competing. Daytona, here we conclude tonight. We turn our attention to the final tournament of the fall semester at Iowa, the Harvest Cup next month, and then Michigan, Mortonsville, and Homestead coming up in the spring, Taylor.
Absolutely. We kind of wrap up the season when football is starting to get into bowl season with the Harvest Cup, and then we'll come back right before March Madness and then work our way through into April for the spring semester and get set for some exciting competition to wrap up in Homestead Miami Speedway.
A lot of great racing to be had on a very diverse set of tracks and a new track for eNASCAR competition outright in Mortonsville. Blake, this is the new format for the College Series. If you haven't heard, we're not competing in standalone races. We have tournaments now.
Well, and the focus tonight, just look at the right side of your graphic. We've already completed the preliminary round and tournament week 1. We are over to week 2. Semifinals to take place in LCQ. But at the end of it all, 25 drivers will make the final feature tonight to try and fight to be one of the 6 that end up with all that scholarship money that all these drivers have tried to whittle themselves down to at the end of the night.
Top 6 drivers earn scholarship money. Everybody earns points. Your highest finishers earn the most points and give themselves a leg up on the championship chase, trying to run down a Yerashak, a Clampett, anybody of that nature who is in contention for the season-long prize, which will be given out at Homestead in April. Qualifying has wrapped up, so now we have the fun part of this to go through. 3 semifinal races that we are going to take a look over and compete and contest. This is the first one. You see that blinking white box sort of just right of center on the bracket. That's where we are in the grand scheme of things. Dylan Alt is your pole sitter representing Sacramento State University. Put a 51.463 down to take pole over Horry Georgetown Technical College's Timmy Holmes out of South Carolina. UNLV, the University of Nevada at Las Vegas, is Nathan Scott. Runner Rebel starts third alongside the Buckeye representing the Ohio State University, Matthew Morton. Bradley Erickson continuing Arizona State University's tradition of excellence in this series. The Sun Devil starts alongside the Valkyrie from Converse University, Jake Cummings, who rolls off 6th.
Moving on to row number 4 from North Central Texas College will be John Hagan. Alongside him, Wayne State College of Nicholas Sutton. Zach Sprouse from George Mason University will be in row 9 with Liberty University's Malachi Drake to round out the top 10. Moving on to row number 6, University of Michigan's Matthew Zwack with Jeremiah Taylor from Belmont Abbey College.
One more driver in the mix. It's Ryan Andrew from Des Moines Area Community College in Iowa. Makes it the 13th and final driver in this first of 3 heats, where we are going to start figuring out who is going to get a ticket directly into the final of the Clash on the Beach. And so, as this grid gets ready to roll, we have an opportunity to take a look at our Logitech G race analysis plate McCandless, and we're going to have a good set of drivers to contest this first semifinal heat.
These drivers will be very familiar with this format or this race length. Only 12 laps, same thing that they had to go through a week ago through the heats to try and get up to this point. Although what's going to be interesting here, taking only the top 5. How many times did we see 3, 4 wide at the line, and yet we may not see 2 rows of that advance through after these 12 laps? So 6th through 13th, they got one more shot. They're not out of it yet, but they have the LCQ to look forward to. But top 5 is all we're taking out of these first 12 lap features.
Taylor Burris, you know what this kind of reminds you of, and especially here at Daytona with the field size where we are, is reminds you that you can register now for the opportunity to race for scholarships in the eNASCAR College iRacing Series. You get to visit pcl.tg/pages/eNASCAR for more information on that, or scan the QR code on your screen. But there's a little bit of a last chance qualifier. I remember when what is now the NASCAR Clash that is held at Bowman Gray Stadium, when it was held, especially back in the late 90s, early 2000s at Daytona, there were last chance qualifying races held usually the morning of what was then the shootout to get drivers into that race. And am I nuts to say that the vibes are pretty similar to that? Not to necessarily make me an old man, but we get a bit of a throwback feel to this, I think.
Yeah, a little bit of a throwback feel. I mean, this is just the opportunity to try to see how you rank up and stack up. And that last chance qualifier that we'll have here today, that's where you need to put it out all on the line if you want to make your chances to go to the big show. 5 spots for these first 3 races that you see here. So you don't have a whole lot of wiggle room. If you make it to that LCQ, you have a little bit more to play with that 10 positions opening. But you have to get on it quickly. 12 laps goes by very fast here at Daytona.
12 laps, and I almost wonder whether or not there might be some strategy delaying just a little bit further back, or if this is such a condensed field, so small a field, and the window to directly qualify for the final so small, that not unlike what we saw in Charlotte last month, that if week 1 was the time to just survive, now is the time to press the issue, to make your way to the front, and to maybe take this whole tournament by the reins, because we have weeded out a lot of drivers. We're down to 39 from 120. At the end of the night, we are going to figure out who is the one that reigns supreme here on the beaches of Daytona. Pace car makes the hard left-hand turn onto pit road. Dylan Alt and Timmy Holmes, 2 Coke Series drivers of yore, will lead us to green flag racing. We are underway with the first semifinal from Daytona International Speedway, and immediately that outside line starting to get some help. I think it might have been Malachi Drake or John Hagan and Nicholas Sutton. A lot of drivers trying to jump up to that high line and roll the momentum on the outside of this group, plate the canvas to try and work their way towards the front of the field.
And already early on, you see a couple of drivers that are starting to move up to that second groove, even starting to form a third lane. But that's what we kind of learned, and I think a lot of drivers took a lot of notes a week ago about how they're able to make moves. How many do they need in their line if they're going to try to form a third lane to try to make something happen? You can see Sacramento State and Michigan lining up there on the top lane. Seems like they only need 2 trucks to try to make some moves as they try to move up towards the front of the pack at the end of the first lap.
North Central Texas's John Hagan leading that outside line of the all-blue truck. Got help from Matthew Slack behind, who has the College Series victory of his own at Darlington. This is on board with the Michigan Wolverine. Giving a big shove to John Hagan, and immediately they have come from the back to the front with all kinds of momentum on the high line. Hagan's going to go to the lead, and Slack might go to second.
Yeah, we see this happen time and time again in multiple different series, that those two trucks can work together and make that charge like we see right now. Hagan drops down to the bottom of the racetrack because we know that bottom lane is the preferred, and that will leave the Liberty University driver of Drake stuck all by himself as Zwack drops down to the second group, as he will now lead that middle lane on the outside, side by side across the line. Hagan will still maintain control of the lead with help from Holmes.
So Hagan left his drafting partner on that high line, decided to drop in front of Timmy Holmes to lock down track position, but that still leaves you susceptible to the runs that may come from the high side. And the energy from that run is going to come a little bit further back. And keep an eye on Malachi Drake, Jeremiah Taylor from Liberty, and Belmont Abbey respectively. They go high immediately. Look what happens. Matthew Zwack now pulls ahead of John Hagan and is your de facto race leader.
Well, just think about the fact that Matthew Zwack and Hagan were, they were 11th or 12th just 2 laps ago. Now they're up here leading. I think that shows you perfectly well that you can make moves. You just have to be willing to be aggressive. And I think with the fact that this is only 12 laps, when do you time those moves up to the front is going to be very, very important. But also think about the fact that, yes, we did have a lot of crashes last week throughout the heats and throughout the features, but we've whittled down a lot of those drivers that aren't here. You're seeing a higher degree of skill, a higher degree of drivers that are comfortable pushing because they're able to advance this far. So I think because of that, you're going to see a differing comfort level this week. There's going to be a little more aggression, and I think drivers are going to be able to trust each other a little bit more tonight than they did so a week ago.
Pretty much even just about now. I think the game plan for both Hagan and Zwack was pretty clear. I think above all else, both of them up significant spots. Zwack gaining 10 spots from his 11th place starting position, and Hagan rolled off from the 7th position and now up to second. But the game plan was clear early for both of those two drivers, Taylor Burris. It was get to the front, make our charge early, and then try and maintain the track position by defending and blocking as opposed to having to make a late charge.
Well, you see right now with Hagan and Zwack, they are doing what exactly you touched on, defending and blocking, getting set, make sure no one behind them really tries to make a charge on that third lane. I have a feeling once that happens, we'll see a big surge of Zwack going up to block it. Right now, Hagan's doing everything, controlling the inside lane, and hopefully we'll see it's just going to be a matter of who gets that extra push on the straightaway on the final lap in that third group as we go on board with John Hagan from Knightdale, North Carolina, leading the charge here at the bottom of the field.
Good look there at Timmy Holmes just behind Matthew Morton, third truck on the inside line. So plenty of experience between those two in the Coach Series and College Series alike. It is Zwack up top, and then Ryan Andrew, who's made his way from the very back to near the front of this field. Now currently scored third, started 13th, dead last in this. You could just see a little bit of the truck right on the left-hand side of the screen. This is commitment here from the George Mason University Patriot, Zach Sprouse. Not only does he have the t-shirt, but bucket hats, Blake McCandless. Are we here for it? We like the fit.
You know, I'm a fan. I like the spirit that Zach Sprouse is bringing into this race. The mechanical engineering student from George Mason University, a chassis team lead for Patriot Motorsports, and also races Legends cars at Dominion Raceway in Virginia. So quite busy here and trying to do things on the virtual side here as well, but currently setting just 3 spots out of a transfer more than halfway through this heat.
Neatest part about that bucket hat, it's got the old shooting star logo that George Mason Athletic used in the men's basketball team. Made the 2006 Final Four. Upset the UConn Huskies in the process in the Elite Eight to get there. Go. Sprouse trying to pull from a little bit of history to maybe get some good luck. He's now pulling along that third line. Sprouse, the first truck on the outside, now making it 3 wide. Got some help, looks like, from Malachi Drake and from Jeremiah Taylor. That trio going to try and work their way at least near the front. But here we are, 3 wide racing, 5 laps to go. This, I think, Taylor Burris, is going to be more the norm and less the exception as the night progresses.
If you are hailing from George Mason University, put on and don your green and gold, because here comes Zach Sprouse around on that third lane, getting a push from Malachi Drake as they work their way down the Daytona Superstretch side by side in that second row right now. But how about Hagan with a big push from Timothy Holmes?
These lines are moving around. They are not particularly stable, and that is one of the big issues that we saw last week in competition, Blake McCandless. So, looking at this group, how nervous are you if you're, especially in the center of this pack, and you see everybody sort of shifting to the left and into the right and into the left again? How important is it to hold a lane to push well?
It's important, but I think it depends on where you are. If you're in the middle or the high lane, I think that's where you start to get really nervous. If you're kind of sitting where Matthew Morton is right now, the Ohio State driver that's that third car in the inside lane, if anything, you can be the one that kind of moves up and makes that mistake, and if anything, you have a better chance of coming out unscathed than those drivers that are in the middle on the top side. These wrecks move up, or they tend to move up in these corners, so I think it just depends on where you're at, but also, you know, it's really important if you're Andrew right there in that blue car right behind Matthew's whack, trying to make these moves and be aggressive. This is where it's getting crazy up front right now as Hagan's able to shut the door, and now you have, well, just about this, a Buckeye and a Wolverine that are side by side for second. How's that going to work?
How is that going to work? Two old-time rivals as one driver hits the fence on the wall hard on the top side. Two drivers stuck out of it. Timmy Holmes, I believe Ryan Andrew was the other one. That'll cut down the pack a little bit. There's another car, or other truck in the back there. So we're down to 11 in this lead group. And now, if you're Zach Sprouse, you're just trying to claw everybody back. The problem for Sprouse is that if he doesn't get the draft, he's got nose damage. So one of those other two drivers may be aware of that. We'll see whether or not they can catch back up to the main group and then resume proceedings as an 11 truck pack this time.
Cue the Buckeye battle cry as here comes Morton. He shuts the door in front of Matthew Zwack to lead the charge around the outside and tries to get the race lead with now 3 laps to go ahead of Hagan. Make it 2 to go as they head into turn 1.
Not to go for the low-hanging fruit, but my hunch here, Blake McCandless, if there ever is somebody who knows how to cross T's and in particular dot I's, you'd think that an Ohio State driver would be pretty good at that, no?
Well, you'd think that would be the case, but now you have Matthew Zwack, Matthew Morton, those two Ohio State and Michigan drivers working together, and if anything, moving together down to the bottom of the racetrack. So whether you want to work together or not, we'll see. Now Zwack goes to the outside. They're both in a position to transfer for now, so I don't think they want to work together, but they're kind of being forced to at this point as they're going to lead the inside and outside line with the white flag. 1 more lap to go, and indeed we are hearing the Matthew Zwack did not want to try and help his fellow Ohio State Buckeye rival.
He's going to have to get a big run here because he's falling back about 2 or 3 truck lengths. There's an opportunity for Nicholas Sutton potentially to get involved. There's an opportunity for Hagan to control the middle, which is exactly what he's going to do. Big run for John Hagan down the back straightaway, getting a lot of help from Matthew Zwack to try and draw even with Matthew Morton as everybody else rumbles down the back straightaway into turn 3.
Side by side as they work their way through Morton and Hagan. Who's going to come out on top, Ohio or North Central Texas? It's going to be a drag race. Contact. One truck goes wide and heads in. Now there's more contact. Up and over goes Michigan, and across the line it will be Hagan who gets the win.
How crazy was that? John Hagan got ahead of everybody as everybody else wrecked at the line. And Hagan, Erickson, Sprouse, Malachi, Drake, and Dylan Alt, the 5 that advanced directly into the main and to the final. Everybody from Jeremiah Taylor on back going to be racing in the last chance qualifier. And there are some big names in that. Morton and Zwack in particular fighting amongst themselves for a spot in the final. They still have work to do, as do Nicholas Sutton, Ryan Andrew, and Timmy Holmes. Those 3 also going to the last chance qualifier to try and make their way into the final of the Clash on the Beach. We turn our attention now to the tournament bracket once again and to the second semifinal, middle of the right side of the bracket. 13 more drivers beginning to sort themselves out. We'll find out who advances directly into R25. Logan Clampett, defending series champion, the Titan out of Cal State Fullerton, on pole for this one alongside Bridger Olson from Spokane Community College in Washington State. Joseph, one of the best names in the college series, representing the State University of New Jersey, Rutgers. Jacob Bradley racing for Purdue University in Indianapolis, making up the outside of row 2. Ball State University's Daniel Nanny, the Cardinal, rolls off in the 5th position in this race. Adam Garza representing Triton College will start on the outside of row 3 in 6th.
Moving on into row number 4 is going to be Jack Stoneman from the University of Northwestern Ohio, alongside Connor Yarashak from the University of Calgary. John Forbes Jr. from Saddleback College will be in row 5, and rounding out your top 10 from Texas Tech University is Elijah Wells. Row 6 will see Abraham Vila from the University of Houston and Kettering University's Maverick Davis.
13 drivers with the opportunity to make their presence known at Daytona and potentially, maybe, just maybe, race their way into the final 25. But it is a very familiar face on pole as we look once again. Blake McCandless at the Logitech G race analysis.
Pretty simple and straightforward. Exactly what we just left. 12 laps and top 5 will advance. And just think about what we just saw with the drivers that really were pushing the issue, that were controlling that last heat. Matthew Morton, Matthew Zwack, Timothy Holmes, Ryan Andrew, those drivers that were up front and competing at the front that entire heat, and yet none of them were a part of the top 5 to advance through to the final round. Do these drivers take some notes of that?
I think there's something to be said, and I love the point you bring up. I think of Malachi Drake in particular, Taylor Burris, who sat at the back of the pack for at least 3/4 of that semifinal. And then all of a sudden, they wrecked all around him. He poked his way through it all, ends up with the top 5 spot. Malachi Drake's going to have the opportunity to race for some scholarship money and potentially win the Clash on the Beach.
I mean, it's not a bad strategy call. I mean, as long as you can find the seas parting for you to get through the chaos, that is a great strategy, but also it's kind of a catch-22. You may be able to get through it. You probably may not, though, as we know how often people try to get through those wrecks, but unfortunately get caught up at the last possible second.
A lot of interest from the iRacing channel Twitch chat as well. France represented amongst the audience, fans in Michigan and Purdue also in there as well. I see a boiler up or two in chats. The Midwest pretty well represented for a race that largely is down in South Florida. You would think there'd be a little bit more of a spread, but there's some good Midwestern representation in this. You see 2 Midwestern drivers there between Purdue University and Indianapolis and Ball State. And a reminder, while we have a moment, that NASCAR 25 is now available on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and Series S. The Gold Edition features the full base game and the Season Pass, which includes a variety of in-game currency and bonuses for your career, as well as 3 DLC packs offering over 230 paint schemes and fire suits. The PC version of NASCAR 25 releases on Steam on November 11th. Visit NASCAR25.com for more information. TB, I was trying to work my way around Martinsville and figured out just how to take advantage of a manual transmission. Try and give yourself a challenge here with some strong AI and the opportunity to control just how many RPMs you're carrying out of the corner. It's a very different beast from what we see here at Daytona. But guess what? In March, we'll be at Martinsville for the first eNASCAR event of any kind at Martinsville Speedway. That, I think, will be every bit as fun as it is historic.
Probably one of my favorite tracks to run. I had the privilege of winning there a couple of official races. In fact, one race where I didn't even have to stop for tires just because of just strategy and pulling out the stops. Amazing track. Looking forward to going there for the first time in eNASCAR competition, and hopefully to see all of you tuning in for the action when we go there at the paperclip.
Did you get yourself a mini grandfather clock?
I thought about it. I thought about going and buying one. I
like that. I like that. Gotta stay committed to your career as a driver, as all of us are on iRacing, as are some of the best in the eNASCAR College iRacing Series as we take off green flag out for our second of 3 semifinal races. Richard Olson, Logan Clamp at the first 2 in the front row. That back line really hanging out. Abraham Vila and Julian O'Neill almost laying back and away from all of this as they come up to full song in full speed. Starting to see Richard slide back a bit, but again, that run on the outside, Blake McCandless, that's what you can do if you get a good push, good help here. You see the moves that Bradley and Olson are making to try and get towards the front.
Well, and just look at what was forming there for just a moment. There were only 3 drivers on the inside line. Everybody's starting to get a little more antsy or a little more willing to go up to the middle, to go up to that third lane, even here on the opening lap. Just think Zwack and Hagan drove all the way through up to the front of the field by the end of lap 2, so they know that they can build the runs, they know that they can make the moves. But again, you see not near as much aggression pushing as what we saw at the end of that last one, where things got a little bit chaotic as we ride on board here. Ball State's Daniel Nanny currently sitting third in line on the inside, and just happens to be the driver that's right around that cut line. Goes up, goes down, right around where that 5th spot is here at the moment.
Not a whole lot of movement amongst this second semifinal early on. Not really too many shuffles in position. It's pretty much lockstep. But at some point, Taylor Burris, as we saw in the first race of the evening, I think at some point you have to expect that you're going to see the third line develop, and that's when the chaos starts to really unfold.
It really is, James, and it's going to be exciting to see how this plays out amongst them and who will be that first one to jump out in line as we watch Joseph from the Rutgers Scarlet Knight be the first one to jump to that second lane. He's got a little bit of a rivalry right now as he's got the Purdue driver of Bradley right there behind him. They actually got a game coming up this weekend where they'll go head-to-head amongst themselves in football competition as we go on board with a former winner, John Forbes Jr. from Saddleback College, as he tries to be patient, waiting for that opportunity. He's got a great driver to help and work with of Connor Yarashak up ahead of him. I have a feeling these two right here will be the ones that'll fire off on that third lane.
Yeah, if there's anybody that's going to pull the Timmy Holmes, John Hagan sort of complex or the Matthews Zwack complex, these two strike me as two that could very easily get lined up, push for a lap or two, work their way to the front, draw people behind them, and really flip this field and set themselves up nicely. And here goes Yarashak trying to push Adam Garza to a third lane, starting to develop that high line as they turn their attention to the backstretch.
It's been a little more organized up here at the front. Nobody's really tried to challenge Clampett at this point yet from that inside line. Daniel Nanny's been a pretty consistent pusher there on the bottom. You can see that third lane starting to form up here very quickly. As again, we got all the way to lap 12 in our first part of this semifinal before anybody really got out of shape. We still see some trucks getting out of shape. We see a little bit of contact there. The UNOH driver in Stoneman, and I believe it was the Purdue Boilermaker in Bradley that got together there through the tri-oval. Things much more stable than they were noticeably than a week ago, but it's still just little mistakes here and there. You just never know when one is just going to go a bit too far.
Joseph for Rutgers controlling the middle lane. Garza has the high line now. He will back out. Joseph will of his place in the middle, and that will leave Bridger Olson in control as we go on board with Adam Garza and Logan Clampett. You get a good sense of what their setups are like at home and how they're racing, and I think most importantly, Taylor, the many different ways in which you can compete on the sim.
Absolutely, a lot of different ways as we watch on board with Clampett and Garza. They're going side by side as Garza is now starting to fade back, not getting enough help there as that in lane there. So far, it's going to be difficult for them to try to battle it back up. Yarashek might have overheated the engine, so you have to be careful as we go and watch Joseph battle it out with Clampett as the Rutgers Scarlet Knight doing a great job of holding that inside lane.
Joseph on the bottom, Logan Clampett in the middle, third line being controlled, I believe, by Jacob Bradley. Yes, indeed, though it is just he and Adam Garza on the very highest of lines at Daytona. At some point, though, here, we're already halfway through the second semifinals, so if you are a little bit further back, if you're a Yarashak, if you're a Maverick Davis, a John Forbes Jr., at what point, Blake McCandless, do you decide to go?
I think any time in the last 3 or 4 laps, you just want to be up front. You'd rather be defending and having to throw blocks, I think, than having to get aggressive and try to make moves at that point. Again, I know that's not exactly what we saw play out just a couple of just in the last heat or so, where you had the drivers that really kind of controlled the race, and Matthew Morton and Matthew Zwack, they each ended up spun and not a part of it. But I think the odds favor you if you're having to defend rather than having to go on the attack and try to look at where that 5th place run is and try to give the bumps just like that to try to put yourself in position to do it, as we're right on board with Jack Stoneman.
one of two UNOH drivers. So how big it could be if Stoneman can make his way into the final, and if he can get a little bit of help and the other UNOH driver can make it in, to have a natural drafting partner like that, Taylor Burris, when nobody else in this field has one, that could be very significant depending upon how this plays out.
Absolutely. It's all about it, and I'm really watching that third lane right now because it's getting a little too chaotic with how those drivers are just bobbing and weaving a little bit, especially in the corner. Got to be careful with that. If I was anyone, John Forbes Jr. might be in the best position as we get closer to the end.
Maybe, just maybe. We saw the Malachi Drakes make their way from the back to the front off of last lap incidents. I wonder if the potential is there that we see that again. 9 laps up on the board, 4 laps left to complete in this. 8 laps completed in the second semifinal. Logan Clampett, your leader on the bottom. Bridger Olson's did a nice job of staying near the top 5 all night, but at some point, Blake McCandless, that outside line is going to have to work together to draw Clamp even. Going to have to side draft a little bit. That's going to be tricky, I think, just with how much these trucks have danced, even within singular lanes on this track.
We definitely saw a lot more 3x3 racing just a semifinal ago. As we ride on board here with Maverick Davis, this is kind of prime position right here with the Kettering University driver, that if you are going to form that third lane, you're going to be somebody that can go up there and be a real factor to give them some momentum. And you're going to see that with 3 laps to go, they're going to be willing to take that chance. Euroshak trying to build up a run down the backstretch, and it looks like they're going to be able to do just that. And we saw a lot last week. 3 trucks was enough to try and get that top lane formed up. And what a run from Euroshak, who he may be able to get the lead off at turn number 4 this time around.
Good news for Euroshak, they got to the front. Bad news, there's still just door on door on door right next to each other with maybe half the trucks, with if that, between them. And that's probably being generous, Taylor Burris. But you're going to have to build up that run on the outside. And I think you're also going to have to hope that the middle lane doesn't necessarily get a good run out of the corner if you are Euroshak trying to drive your way on that third lane on the very high line up next to the wall.
I got to say, I saw a big bobble right there from O'Neill, the Delaware driver, as he tried to gather it back up. Great recovery as those two, along with Yerishak and Stoneman, battle for that final transfer spot that's just switching every single time that it moves. As another wobble right there from O'Neill. You got to be careful with that. Don't want to have too much pushing in the corners. I mean, that's one thing you don't want to do. I know you want to be aggressive, especially coming to the white, but you got to have a little patience.
Here we go. White flag out. John Forbes Jr., our Talladega winner from the spring, just laying at the back here. Have a hunch he's almost banking on somebody up front making a mistake. Meanwhile, Yershak trying to make that third lane go. Joseph trying to draw you maybe side draft. Logan Clampett a little bit to get up to the race lead.
It's been tight. Those drivers, 3rd, 4th on back, they're the ones who are making these bumps that are upsetting the handling of these drivers up in the top 3. But 3x3, several rows deep. Who's going to be able to get back to the 5th position? Trouble in the back of the field.
I believe that was Abraham Vila whose motor blew up. That cleans up everything. No, it was Julian O'Neill as Logan Clampett's going to get a huge push from Daniel Nitty. They fan out 3 and 4 wide at the line to try and make it into the final directly. It's Logan Clampett, defending champion of the College Series, who wins that second semifinal. He will advance into the final along with Nanny, Joseph, Jack Stoneman, and Adam Garza. Bridger Olson on back, and that includes Yerishak and John Forbes Jr., all going to the LCQ.
Tough break, but Julian O'Neill blew an engine right there, which caused that major pileup out of turn number 4. And unfortunate for Shadowback College driver John Forbes Jr. to try to work his way through. He unfortunately has to try the LCQ.
And so we turn our attention to our final semifinal race of the evening, semifinal number 3, where we're going to pick up 5 more trucks that are going to go directly to the final round. Isaac Shelley is the other UNOH driver that made it into this week. Would he not love to join Jack Stoneman in the final and really throw a strategy wrinkle into things? Daniel Falkingham is a 4-door winner of the College Series. The University of Maine of Machias driver starts in second. Edward Sanchez at a Baruch College in New York City rolls off from third. Connor Trifari is the representative for UNC Charlotte. He is the lone 49er in the second week of competition. In the class on the beach, he rolls on fourth. Carson Bowers, the Purdue Boilermaker, will roll off from the 5th spot. And Sam Smith starts 6th on this grid, representing the Thundering Herd of Marshall University.
Jose Salas Jr. from the University of Connecticut will be in row number 4 alongside Babson College Ethan Shapiro. Rounding out your top 10 from Illinois State University, Connor Berkey, and in 10th position, David Smith from the University of Tennessee. Clemson's University, Jake Hall and John McClear from Rollins College will be in row 6.
One more driver is Benjamin White from the University of West Florida. That is our 13 driver grid. And once again, the story is the same as we turn our attention from the grid to our Logitech G race analysis plate Michaelis. 5 move on directly. Everyone else is going to be racing for one of the 10 spots available in the last chance qualifier.
Probably the only thing I noticed that's a little bit different is the sun's starting to get a little bit higher. Perhaps the track temperature starting to go up just a little bit. We didn't really see that affect the handling of these trucks all too much a week ago, so don't imagine that that'll be any different in this third and final semifinal heat. But it was intense to try and get into the top 5 with the fact that we've pretty much brought the entire field into the tri-oval in both races on lap 12. So we've seen a lot of pushing and shoving, but it's been relatively clean up to this point until we almost get to the start-finish line.
Almost. So, another reminder here that if you are registered and you have competed in at least one time attack for a College Series event, you will automatically be entered for a chance to win a racing prize pack, including a Logitech G923 True Force racing wheel and pedal set for the Xbox or PC, and some iRacing credits to boot. More information and the full rule set are available at pcl.cg/pages/eNASCAR. Now, as we go on board with Edward Sanchez, who had that fabulous story after he charged his way into the second week of competition at Charlotte 1 month ago. If there's another driver that we should be keeping an eye on here, I think, in this one, how about another driver who has former College Series success at Daytona? Sanchez throwing some boxing punches I see on the screen, and he's got the card to boot. He knows his lucky card is ready. He is ready to go for this. But Falkingham, Daniel won at Daytona in this series to start season 4 2 years ago in September of 2023. And there is Falkingham, who's starting outside of the front row, getting ready to go. But for as much as we talked about John Forbes Jr. in that second semifinal, Taylor, I think this is another driver that you have to keep an eye on here, because there are a few people in this field have experience of winning the College Series on a drafting track. Falkingham is one of them.
Absolutely, and we're going to find out here as the pace car make that hard left turn onto pit road, and we'll get to see if Falkingham can continue his trend of dominance at Daytona.
Green flag is out. We are racing in the semifinals once again, and it is all about UNOH versus the University of Maine at Machias. Isaac Shelley, Daniel Falkingham, Connor Trifari right there. We talked a little bit about the UNOH versus UNC Charlotte rivalry. They have put more drivers into the College Series so far than any other 2 schools in this competition in 2025 and 26. A little bit of contact there between Falkingham and Sanchez, but we begin to fan out there. I know Sam Smith was looking to make it 3 wide and then ducks back in line, and will follow in behind Trifari.
Watching on here as they start to fan out quite a bit. This is probably the farthest we've seen drivers separated in all of the semifinal races we've had so far, as Shelley leads the bottom of the racetrack right now with help from Sanchez. Falkingham and Trafari trying to get the speed wound up to get that outside lane going, but not a lot of help coming into play, as here comes the thundering herd of Sam Smith to try to help Berkey get that outside lane going.
Trying to give a good push to Berkey, the Illinois State driver, is Sam Smith representing the Thundering Herd. You see the bison that is the mascot of the school working on his shirt the same way he works that high line. And the Kelly green and white done of Marshall beginning to give a good push there to Connor Berkey to try and get the Cardinal up to the front. But yet again, it's Shelley and Trafari right on top of each other as Falkingham leads that middle lane.
This is where it's so difficult when you're in Trafari's position right now with UNC Charlotte. Right above UNOH, by the way, a little bit of rivalry going on there. But when you have somebody behind you that is so aggressive, in Carson Bowers for Purdue, remember he was a winner last week, but he is awfully aggressive and pushing Trafari right in front of him. That's probably the most difficult position to be in if you're that second truck in line. You're trying to line up and make sure everything is good with the pushes that you're giving. But you also have to trust that driver behind you, as we've seen already a couple of times, I would say, in the last lap, that Carson Bowers has been one of the more aggressive pushers that we've seen up to this point. And in doing so and kind of slipping up, that middle lane has kind of fallen apart very quickly.
And Trafari was all over the place, trying to get a good shove from Carson Bowers that last time by. Falkingham went down to the bottom, then caught the run from Edward Sanchez and makes his way up top. Bowers now not content to sit behind anyone, so he's going to pick up the help of Ben White, and he's going to be the first driver to really start that third lane going in earnest as Berkey and company fall back towards the back end of that second lane in the middle.
Absolutely, as they head down the Daytona Superstretch, Carson Bowers really making a big run with help from the West Florida Agronauts of White. As he gets that run, he leads them heading into turn number 3 as they go 3 wide, 3 rows deep. And who will now decide what Bowers will do? Will he drop to the bottom or hold that outside line and make it a little more difficult for the bottom 2 lanes?
Carson Bowers wants control of this race. I think that might be more evident amongst his driving style, Blake McCandless, than we've seen anyone else in any of these 3 races. And even though we saw teammates work together in John Hagan and Matthew Zwack, and we saw what Logan Clamp was able to do, it feels like Bowers has got his elbows out just a little bit more, even in the semifinal races.
I think it favors the drivers that are tending to be aggressive. Usually if something happens, what do we say? Not saying that he's caused anything, but if you are in a situation, usually it's the person that causes it that has the best chance of coming out unscathed. As David Smith looks pretty content right now, sitting in 13th, and you could see giving enough space that if something were to happen or something were to break out, he's kind of anticipating and I think sensing that, yes, this has been probably the most aggressive group we've seen up to this point tonight, and trying to give a little bit of space that with the fact that we continue to see trucks just weaving back and forth, trying to get these pumps or these pushes at Daytona tonight, he has somewhere to go if something were to happen.
John McClear racing with VR and a formula-style rim as well, one of the options that you can take if you are a driver of the sim. And some of these drivers, Taylor Burris, do really love the formula-style rim, even more than the traditional sort of dish that you see in a truck or a stock car.
Absolutely. It gives a little bit more grip, a little more feel for these drivers here. And, of course, using the paddle shifters instead of that H pattern that we're so used to seeing. And, of course, with that VR that you saw right there, able to look around a little bit better to see what's going on above him or below him to hopefully avoid any incidents here, as we're starting to see more drivers jockey for position. Shelley drops down in front of Bowers to lead here out of turn 2.
Shelley got a great push from Falkingham, but that's going to leave Falkingham as the first driver in that second lane. Now Shelley's going to go up the block, so you're starting to see Shelley's game plan. Control both lanes, now back to the bottom to cover and make sure that Carson Bowers can't get a run. Shelley, I think, is going to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and make sure that nobody has the opportunity to go to the outside. Not if he has anything to say about it. Drifts up again to cover the run for Bowers as we ride off the back of Daniel Falkingham's machine.
Buckingham doing everything he can as he works his way through. He's going to push Bowers down into turn number 1 to give them that little extra cushion, which there really is no cushion. You are either in the top 5 or you're out of the top 5 here as they work their way out of turns 1 and 2. Babson's college driver, Shapiro, trying to get the outside lane working, but he has no help. It's a big block by Shelley to try to shut the door and send Bauer packing down the Daytona super stretch.
I was about to say that was just incredibly awful timing there for Carson Bowers, who got shuffled out of the draft and falls all the way back 12 out of 13 trucks. Meanwhile, Shelley still in control of that middle lane. We go on board with UNC Charlotte's Connor Trafari.
One thing I'm noticing through all these onboards that we're doing is just the amount of laser focus that you see out of these drivers. Some of them looking back, but trying to line the bumpers up, trying to go forward. There's a little bit of a bump there in 1 and 2. Looks like everybody's going to be okay as the Rollins driver got into the Baruch driver. That's Sanchez and McClear, the two that made contact. That's going to cost some time in the middle lane. They're going to have to form back up here with Daniel Falkingham leading it. And again, I can't imagine that with especially the Xfinity cars and these trucks in iRacing, there's hardly anybody better at the super speedway game than Daniel Falkingham right now, leading that middle lane as they come around to 3 to go.
Sanchez pushing Falkingham to the front. Shelley did not have an opportunity to slide up into that second groove and block and capture the run of Falkingham. So Falkingham now even, but slides back as they enter the corner. Inside lane going to be the fastest one. A little bit of a stack up on that high line, though. Drivers a little bit further back now. Going to have to really start making moves if they want any opportunity to make it to the front. 10 laps were working, 2.5 laps to go.
It's all coming down to this. Who can make it into that top 5? And already it's just switching back and forth for multiple positions to see who it is as Shelley and Falkingham lead side by side, 2 by 2. I'm liking what Smith may be able to do. Same thing with Bowers. Don't count him out. If we see another incident, he is right there to try to get through the chaos as we now see some drivers going to that third lane to get the ball rolling. And here they go. Slingshot engaged as they head into turn 1.
Just about 7-8 trucks there lined up. A little side shot there from John McClain, who bounced into Benjamin White. Sam Smith tucked in just behind them. Just about everybody still in the mix here. Lap and a half to go. Jake Hall making a big move to the outside to try and form up that third lane, give them a push that might potentially get maybe all of them into the final directly. Everybody else working on the middle lane or the bottom to try and find some space. Going to be an opportunity for Shelley potentially to cover Falkingham if he so chooses, but chooses not to as we come to the white flag.
Can you believe that in all 3 semifinals we will have an entire pack formed up as we take the white flag? But the challenge has been for it to end like this under the checkered. We didn't see it in semifinal 1. We did see it in semifinal 2. And here in semifinal 3, they are 3 by 3, front 2 rows, as that battle to get in the top 5 is going to shift back and forth wildly down the back stretch.
Absolutely nothing between them. Sanchez trying to push Falkingham to the front. Falkingham out in front by maybe a truck. What a big move there from Daniel Falkingham to get down to the bottom.
Watch out, though, Sanchez. He finally got some clean air, though, as he's getting a big push from White as they head down the front straightaway. Who's going to make it to the top 5 as a drag race? Checkered flag. Give it to Falkingham to win here at Daytona.
Daniel Falkingham claims the third one, and Edward Sanchez in second. We are going to see Edward, the New York City native, in the final. One of the 5 that transfers in directly from this third semifinal, along with Falkingham, your winner, then Shelley, White, and Rollins College's John McClear, the last automatically racing for some of the scholarship money.
Absolutely great run by all of them. And how about Sanchez? The excitement is pumped, but for Shafari and company, it's off to the LCQ.
A lot of really, really strong names going to be in this LCQ. I wouldn't want to be stacked up in this. And there is a deep, deep field that now finds itself at the bottom of the right side of the bracket. Last LCQ of this tournament. So we now turn our attention to the starting grid. Jeremiah Taylor was 6th in the first semifinal. So the Belmont Abbey College Crusader starts on pole for this LCQ alongside Bridger Olson from Spokane Community College. Jose Solis Jr. from UConn, the Husky, rolls off third alongside the running rebel of UNLV, Nathan Scott, will roll off from fourth. Elijah Wells from Texas Tech, Carson Bowers from Purdue there, fifth and sixth.
Couple of big names right here. Connor Yarashak and Matthew Morton to round out your top 10, including John Forbes Jr. as well. Watch on, see if he can make it into the finals.
Talk about big names. That is well represented here on this graphic. Matthew Zwack, Ryan Andrew, even Jake Hall, Maverick Davis. Some big movers that, unfortunately, things did not work out. This is their last chance to try to make it through.
Biggest names on this page: Connor Trafari, Timothy Holmes from UNC Charlotte, and Horry Georgetown Technical College. Abraham Vila had pace, especially in week one, got caught up in incidents and got caught out by the blown motor from Julian O'Neill, who also starts back here in this LCQ. So one more opportunity for Vila to try and race his way up front and represent the Houston Cougars in the final. Cars, or rather trucks, are gridded. One more time, Blake McCandless, we turn our attention to the Logitech G race analysis for this last chance qualifier.
So still the same distance that we've had in each of our first three semifinals, still just 12 laps, but the window is a little bit wider to try and advance through to the final round. Taking the top 10 out of 24, 11th through 24th, you're going to get some points, so congratulations, but you're going to have to go back to class and get ready. When we move on throughout this semester, you will not be competing to try and win the Clash of the Beach at Daytona.
And what kind of opportunity this represents, either gain or miss, for the drivers that do not make it, because Iowa, Taylor Burst, where we head next, very racetrack from this.
Absolutely. It's going to be a very difficult, tough break. We're going to re-rack and restack it, though, and if you want that chance, make sure to hit the QR code to learn more about this amazing series for the eNASCAR College iRacing Series.
Register to compete in the racing here. You've got a shot at $60,000 in scholarships. You can learn so much more. There's also the We Got Wheels giveaway. All that information on pcl.gg/pages/eNASCAR. 24 trucks in this field, of which only 10 will advance to the final, and they will make up starters 16 through 25 in the championship race, which will take place after this LCQ, in which will go for just over 30 laps of competition, and one driver will claim the Clash on the Beach and join Dylan Basin as an eNASCAR College iRacing Series tournament winner. So, lights off on the pace car. These trucks ready to do battle. How quickly that third lane will develop and how much that could change things, I think a very intriguing and important point to make note of, as we will go here for 12 more laps to set the field in its entirety for the finale, the Clash on the Beach. Jeremiah Taylor and Bridger Olson from Belmont Abbey and Spokane Community College to lead us to green, a North Carolina school and a Washington State school going coast to coast at the front of the field here at Daytona. Green flag is out. We're underway. Solis with a good push there to Taylor, to move Taylor out in front ever so slightly. We'll call it maybe a bumper, if that, but watch for Nathan Scott to push Bridger Olson through the corners here. The outside lane, as per usual, looking like they'll have a good run off the two.
On before the storm here as drivers try to jockey, but for one driver, Jake Hall, he wants to already go to the third lane and see what he can do all by his lonesome. No help whatsoever for him as Timothy Holmes tries to close up to him, but not going to be close enough to try to really help Jake Hall as they head down the Daytona Super Stretch.
Taylor and Olson still in control of this Hall, the first truck on the high line, trying to organize that third row. We've already got one willing participant up top in Ryan Andrew, who's not afraid to take that high line early on in proceedings. Now, look at the way they shuffle around. Look at the way the third lane goes. Bridger Olson thought about trying to go to the high line instead. Look at Carson Bowers making the move up top with help from Yarashak and Morton. That's quite the trio there. They will drop, or at least Bowers will drop to the middle. Yarashak's going to keep the high line, but we are 3 wide indeed at Daytona.
It did not take long for those drivers to want to try and make that third lane work, and I think this is where it starts to get really desperate again. We've talked about it all throughout these semifinals that we've seen, but now it's real. Now you don't get the opportunity to advance after here. You're done, and I think you're going to see that play out in not only the numbers that we have. Again, we've had about, 12, 13 trucks on track at any given point tonight. Now we have 24 is Jake Cummings. You can see on board with him. He's dancing right around that cut line. And you can see the trucks dancing right in front of him, all around him, as they try to make their way forward. You can definitely tell the intensity here in the pack is picked up quite significantly, and you'll get a great vantage point here to see exactly how these drivers are moving in throughout these lanes, and that going straight sometimes can be pretty difficult on these straightaways.
Look at how toughed up the top 15 are Taylor Burst. That's the thing that stands out to me. Once you get a little bit further back in this field, you can see some of the separation, but everybody from about Sam Smith, the Marshall truck, Kelly Green and White there on the bottom, everybody up there just about nose to tail.
It's all about what you learn from your semifinals races as well as week one. How heads-up driving are you going to be? Your head's got to be on a constant swivel, especially if you're right there in that hornet's nest of drivers. Drivers such as Smith, Cummings, Bradley, Hall, and Andrew all just jumbled together, fighting their way to make sure they stay in the top 10 for these next few laps.
Big move there from Solis. He gave a good push to Taylor, who has not come off the bottom one bit since we took the green flag. And I wonder if that might not be the worst strategy in the world, like the canless, because again, it's top 10 that make it. It doesn't necessarily matter whether or not you win this race. All that matters is that you're top 10. If you're trying to defend track position, controlling that inside line is a good place to start as we go on board with Wayne State College's Nicholas Sutton out of Omaha.
Well, what's been so different is that we've gotten 3 wide very, very quickly, and with the numbers that we have in this pack, there's really nowhere to go. I would have thought that, some of the names that we see beneath that cut line right now, a John Forms, a Timmy Holmes, a Matthew Zwack, some of those drivers would be up in a position right now where they're pretty close or even beyond that top 10 cut line, but where are you going to go? I mean, just look, they're completely stacked up, and you're just hoping that you're in the lane that continues to move forward. But at this point, your guess is as good as anybody that if they stay formed up like this, it's going to be really, really difficult to try and take yourself from a spot outside of the transfer to inside of the transfer.
And we haven't really seen a lot of movement amongst the lanes. The sort of slingshot nature that we saw from, I think it's Zwack, I think of Holmes, I think of Hagan, especially in that first semifinal. We just haven't seen drivers been able to make the moves there because we have 3 lines and Solis makes contact. He gets shoved out of the way. They wreck behind. Trucks flipping and crashing everywhere, and that might just separate the top 10 outright. It might be a race of who survives the crash to get to the back. This front pack is going to have the opportunity to reform as Solis is able to maintain his track position, but now Bowers is ahead of Taylor, and we might have some takers drop to the inside line, but they may all just stay tucked in together because they are clear. The driver on the outside looking in, Abraham Vila right behind Sam Smith, who has a tremendous amount of damage to the right front of his truck.
You're looking at probably your top 8 right now. Hall, Smith, and Vila are going to be the ones to watch. They have about a 1.5 second advantage, and there you see Smith and Vila getting around Hall there. Hall's got a little bit of damage, and Vila's going to work with Smith to push him ahead. Those two are going to try to separate. Looks like a little bit of rear-end damage to Vila as well. Hopefully that won't affect him too much. Try to keep that truck out of air as much as possible. Here's that second group led by Bradley as they rocket down the Daytona Superstretch as Bowers works his way through, leading the charge.
I got a good look there at Abraham Vila. He was shoving Sam Smith through the corner. Here's a look at the replay on bottom, see what happened. It starts with the bump there. Solis Jr. goes wide. Nathan Scott can send up into the fence. I think I saw that might have been, I believe, Jake Cummings, who went head on into the fence there. Done and dusted, but it splits up this lead pack. Essentially, everybody running in the top 7 or 8, largely okay for the moment, though impressively, Sam Smith and Abraham Vila are gaining on John Forbes Jr., the last truck in that lead pack. So this could be a battle still.
It could be, but I think it's safe to say if anyone in that top 8, just be patient. Don't fight it. You're going to transfer to the finals. And this is the one I got to white right here, as Hall does have help from Sutton. And there's that next group right there, led by Matthew Zwack right there. And this is going to be exciting to see how these 6 or 7 drivers are going to battle it out. Zwack gets a big run and help from Berkey and Trifari as they work their way onto the tri-oval.
So those two groups beginning to form up and become one. Also at the front can tell you that Jeremiah Taylor has led everyone from that high line and has now managed to get a group going in the second lane. So the leaders are side by side. You see this back group behind now working from the top side to try and clear Jake Hall and send him further down the running order. Vila is the transfer truck at the moment, but there are a lot of trucks coming to change that picture very, very quickly.
And I think that's going to be the case. So you're going to catch these two. There's a little bit of damage. Wack's going to go to the bottom, but he might get trapped behind both of these trucks that do have a considerable amount of damage, but there's 2 transfer spots on the line there. Also, Zwack and company, they were about 3.5 seconds back. They're now only 1.5 seconds back. So give them another 3 laps, and I think they're going to be able to get back to this pack that is going to have to stay 2 and 3 wide because they don't want to give anybody back there anywhere to go by the time they get there.
I was wondering whether or not the damage on Sam Smith's truck might actually hinder that group from catching back up to the lead. Doesn't really seem like it. Now, there's the question to be asked. There might be someone maybe better suited to lead that group, a truck that doesn't have as much front-end damage in particular, going to be a little bit faster. But here's a look at what Sam Smith is seeing out of his windshield. And the biggest thing I am seeing is that group of trucks up front
they're going to catch
getting closer and closer and closer. And they are going to catch this pack somewhere in the ballpark of maybe a lap and 3/4 to go. I'd say by the time we get to turn 1, they should be relatively close.
It's about 0.7 of a second separating Smith from Olsen right now, and that gap is closing significantly. And I think if Zwack can get in front, he may be able to help pull them closer. He's going to give a big shove to the back bumper of Smith as the thundering herd comes charging in on your top 8.
Outside line dying off in this lead group. I think they're going to try and maybe go single file to protect themselves, or maybe not. Carson Bowers jumps to the high line. That second group there trying to run down the leaders and give themselves a chance to break some of the hearts of the drivers who have been in this lead pack all the way through proceedings. It is Matthew Morton leading the LCQ for the Ohio State University, the Purdue Boilermaker on the outside, and here comes Abraham Vila. We know how aggressive he has been. Here comes the show as they work their way to the white flag in the LCQ.
1 lap left. They're going to be right there as they get into turn number 1 for the final time. We did see Smith throwing some aggressive blocks to try and protect his position. Right now he's outside. There's the battle for 10th of the driver that occupies it at the moment. But as they work to the back straightaway, I think we'll see some drivers duck out of line 3 wide as it's a full pack here down the back stretch going into 3 and 4. Who's going to make the top 10?
Carson Bowers and Matthew Morton in control of these lanes. Where do you go 3 wide? At what point do you try and make a move to get yourself to the front here as the pushes begin to get heavier? One opportunity coming out of turn 4 to try and make moves. Smith gets turned in the back of the field. That spreads everybody out, and that should make it easy. Carson Bowers got it at the line. Connor Trifari just beats out Connor Berkey for the final transfer spot. And after all that work that Zwack and Smith and company did, none of them end up in the final. Here are your 10 that make it. Bowers from Purdue, Morton from Ohio State, John Forbes Jr. from Saddleback College, Calgary's Yarishak, Jeremiah Taylor from Belmont Abbey, Soldish from UConn, Elijah Wells, the Texas Tech Red Ranger, Bridger Olson from Spokane Community College, Abraham Vila from Houston, and Connor Trifari from UNC Charlotte, the 10 drivers that advance into the final. Here are those Taylor Burris just on the outside looking in.
A tough break for Illinois State of Connor Berkey. Matthew Zwack, a big upset we have here tonight from Michigan. He will not get to make it into the big show. Same thing with Jake Hall and company. Timothy Holmes out early, along with the rest of the field. Jake Cummings, as I got to say, tough break indeed, James.
Tough break for some, but that's just the nature of Daytona. On the other side of this commercial break, 25 drivers, scholarship money, and the opportunity to claim the Clash on the Beach. The finals are coming up next year. Don't go anywhere. More action for the eNASCAR College iRacing Series, powered by the Play vs. College League, coming up right after this.
For 8 remaining drivers, what matters is the moment.
And he's done it again!
Steeled focus on detail.
Denny Hamlin is going to Phoenix!
Driven by heart, steered by steady hands.
Epic!
With a resolve to make a run for the ages.
Can you believe the finish that we are about to see?
The NASCAR playoffs continue in Martinsville on NBC and Peacock.
Sometimes you got to get back to your roots. Remember where it all started.
Is it all a fever dream?
NASCAR Thunder 2000.
Our goal was simple: make it authentic. The stories,
There's a fight using lessons learned from his father.
the fans, the rivalries,
Harvick got into the side of the tree.
that feeling of being part of it all. That's why we went to work on this game. We've heard you. It's been a long time since we've had a game that captures what the sport is all about. Well, time is now. This one's built for the fan, for anybody who wants to experience what it's really like. All right, let's go. From the sound to the speed to the venue.
Daytona International Speedway.
Back at Darlington Raceway.
All there's left to do is fire it up.
Racing isn't just a game. It's a way of life. Every lap, every moment. Practice is about consistency. Winning doesn't come easy.
Yo! My turn, Bubba.
Feel the road. Own the race. Logitech G wheels and pedals available now on Amazon.
This portion of the broadcast is brought to you by Logitech G. Through design, engineering, and a love of driving games, Logitech G takes racing simulation to another level. Logitech G, the official wheel and pedals of the eNASCAR College iRacers. Play vs. College League, the largest collegiate community, bringing in the new era of esports for students across the country. Learn more at pcl.gg. By NASCAR 25, available on PlayStation and Xbox now. Coming to Steam on November 11th. Welcome back to coverage of the eNASCAR College iRacing Series powered by the Play vs. College League. And a reminder one more time that if you have registered and competed in at least one time attack during the 2025-26 College iRacing Series season, you are automatically entered for a chance to win a racing prize pack, including a Logitech G923 True Force racing wheel and pedal set for the Xbox or PC, and iRacing credits. And for more information and the full set of rules, you can head to pcl.gg/pages/eNASCAR. And if you need even more information, you can scan the QR code on your screen to sign up to compete in the eNASCAR College iRacing Series. Same web link, more information on that. But most importantly, Taylor Burris, if you didn't compete in Charlotte, if you didn't compete here at Daytona, it doesn't matter. Each of these tournaments are all individual. So if you really like Iowa, you want an opportunity to sign up for an opportunity to win the Harvest Cup, you can jump right in there. Nothing crazy.
Absolutely, really no surprise. You really just go out there, have fun at your favorite track to represent your college.
All kinds of fun that we will have in Iowa in November. But for now, it is time to figure out who reigns supreme in the clash on the beach. We have made it through 120. We have whittled down 39 and 25, and these are the 25 drivers that will compete in the finals of the Clash on the Beach. John Hagan, we saw all the speed there. The defending champion Logan Clampett, Daniel Fulkingham won at Daytona and College Series competition before. Edward Sanchez has the lucky card. He'll be in this alongside Daniel Nanny in row 3.
A couple of other drivers that we're going to watch. Former winner Zach Sprouse. Looking forward to seeing what he can do, as we have two University of Northwestern Ohio drivers represented here tonight in row 5 and row 6. Watch out for them.
Line up nose to tail. That should be pretty lethal combos. They try to move up through the field. Dylan Ault, Adam Garza, Carson Bowers. I would even say Matthew Morton was able to sneak his way into the feature. John Forbes Jr., some big names that I think could make a factor if they can come up through the field.
These are the drivers who were in the LCQ. Connor Yarashak was so strong at Charlotte, trying to gain the points lead. Going to have to make a run if he wants to go catch up with Logan Clamp and Elijah Wells from Texas Tech. Jose Solis Jr. has experience in this too, and we saw the pushes from Abraham Vila made it in. What kind of fun can the Houston Cougar make this race? As Connor Trafari starting shotgun on the field for the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, the 49er, with an opportunity and at Daytona that's all you can ask for, because any one of these 25 has a chance to win depending on how the chips fall. Clayton McCandless, one more look in this tournament at our Logitech G race analysis.
Finally changing it up here, 32 laps, which should not be a concern in terms of fuel. They should be able to go all the way green flag should that be necessary. 2 tire sets are available should they need it, but not going to be too much of a concern. But the biggest difference is here between the previous 16 rounds that we've run here at the Clash at the Beach. $3,000 in scholarship money for the driver that crosses the start-finish line in first place. We'll pay out the top 6, but this is when it gets real. We've done all this whittling down to these 25 drivers. Let's see who can get it done and take home the win.
Good look at the weather conditions here, Taylor Burris. Wonderful Florida weather here for this final.
I mean, you're talking about pristine weather in Florida, and especially in Daytona Beach. 88 degrees is that track temperature, but that wind, I'm curious to see where it's pointing, if it's going north or south. That will be a big hindrance or help for our drivers on these straightaways.
Worth noting here, we haven't had a chance to touch on it too much, but the in-sim time for this race right before 2:30 p.m. Eastern time today, October 22nd, 2025. We saw the air temp here right around 76 degrees Fahrenheit. Track temp, for what it's worth, 86 degrees Fahrenheit. So plenty, I think, to keep an eye on here. Also worth noting, winds headed directly to the east, 10 miles an hour. So do the math. Like, that means that there's a headwind somewhere here at Daytona. I'm just not particularly well versed as to which direction that's coming from relative to the track.
Well, again, and I don't think the wind is the concern. It's the shoves. It's all the jockeying, the pack. That's going to be a bigger difference. Also, one other thing to keep of note that is going to be different than the previous 16 rounds here of this event, caution flags will be utilized in this 32-lap sprint to the end. And if it does come to it, green-white checkers will be available.
Yes, so we are going to see a green flag finish in some form, but will it be a short 2-lap dash, or will we see it all play out the way we figure it would normally, just with the 32 laps that we have to play with? Hagan and Clampett to lead us to green. Lights off on the pace car. Daniel Falkingham maybe trying to already keep the fuel up. We may see drivers watch fuel strategies, especially if we end up with some form of green-white checker. That, too, worth noting as well. As the pace car pulls in, John Hagan with the opportunity to take off, and we are green flag in the final for the Clash on the Beach for the eNASCAR College iRacing Series, powered by Play vs. College League. Hagan and Clampett bring us up to speed here at Daytona. This field beginning to come up to full song, keeping an eye on the drivers towards the back and whether or not they are quick to try and make that third lane develop here on the opening lap, or whether or not they might be content to just sit for a little bit and maybe just keep on rolling.
Field now works their way down the Daytona Superstretch. Trucks getting up to speed as Clampett drops down to the bottom of the racetrack to lead that bottom lane, leaving Erickson and the Sun Devils leading the charge on the outside lane as Adam Garza tries to get the third lane going pretty early, I'd have to say, as we still have quite a bit of racing left to go. I'm curious to see how this all plays out, as we still have to see. Patience is still a virtue when it comes to racing at Daytona.
Already starting to bobble and already seeing a few schools of thought here. You've got some drivers trying to stay near the front, but Blake, my eye immediately turns to about Matthew Morton on back. Not sure whether or not they're intentionally trying to drop back, but there is a bit of a gap from these drivers to the rest of this lead pack, and it looks like those drivers just trying to hang out back and avoid chaos should it come.
Definitely a more concerted effort. Again, this is by far the longest run that we'll have of a stretch of racing here at Daytona at this Clash at the Beach. Already you can see Hagan up front throwing a block on Ericsson, getting a little bit out of shape. I think this is why they're being a little patient further back in the pack, that as we form up 3 wide, you're starting to already see a lot of drivers up here being aggressive. So 2 entirely different schools of thought, and that should be no surprise anytime you come to a super speedway that it's like this, that you see drivers like you see the 2 UNOH trucks right here lined up nose to tail, teammates working together. We mentioned that they would line up in rows 5 and 6. They have stayed put, but I would say a couple of truck lengths back from this lead pack. I think just surveying the situation here, trying to see how things will play out.
3 wide already. Benjamin White now is elected to create that top group. He's got Adam Garza and Carson Bowers behind him. Meanwhile, how about Bradley Erickson? Don't feel like we talk too much about the Arizona State Sun Devil, but he right behind Joseph Edwin Sanchez. They thought about maybe jumping up to the high lane. That was a bit of a testy moment there for Joseph, who decides to stay in line, control the middle. But Joseph had the opportunity to jump ahead of Ben White, elected against it for the moment, but I wonder if he may peek out now. He's clear if he wants to do it, and Barrick's just about clear White too.
He certainly is. Joseph, who's been a well-reputable driver in the NASCAR official series on the iRacing platform, competing in multiple different series. Always want to keep an eye on and knows a thing or two about getting around the high banks of Daytona as he works his way, leading that second lane very well. And the Rutgers Scarlet Knight holding off the Sun Devils as they head down through the Tri-Oval as the Acronauts of West Florida of White leading that third lane as we go on board with Joseph here from Clifton, New Jersey.
Joseph, there you get a screen full of Daniel Falkingham. Seeing chat here with a pretty good idea here. They are coining Falkingham the Demon of Daytona because not only does he have a college series win here, but in the NASCAR iRacing Series, he won his split of the Daytona 500 back in February. So that's a driver who's got an extensive amount of plate racing experience, and I think would love to cap off life the college series at Daytona tonight with a victory in the Clash of the Beach. Here we go on board the Jonesport main native.
See, just biding his time right here. Third truck on the inside lane. Now we put 5 laps behind us of 32. I don't think, again, we saw Falkingham on the pace laps on the apron, saving a little bit of fuel. Assuming this is a full tank race, 18.7 gallons is what they would put in these trucks. 32 should be in a spot where they shouldn't need any more fuel. Now, of course, green, white checkers, like you mentioned, that's where perhaps that could come into play, but at least for the time being, 32 laps should be more than doable here for this stretch to the end should we go green flag the entire way.
And how much do you care about that, Taylor Burris? I think that's an important question because if you're White, if you're Joseph, if you're John Hagan, all 3 of them leading the lanes, going to get a little bit less fuel mileage, worse fuel mileage than everybody else behind them in the pack. So at what point do you consider that? And do you maybe switch and drop out of one of those lead spots in order to conserve a little bit more gasoline? Or is it worth it? Do you just stay out there and hope that we go green?
I think it's safe to say if we stay green, it's pretty much worth it. I mean, you touched on it on the pre-race for a race analysis. You should be able to make 32 laps around here, no problem, if we keep it clean and green. If we go into overtime, that's when it gets a little concerning, a little dicey for tonight's action. But right now, no pressure. Try to lead as many laps as you can. Stay up front. Stay away from the trouble that's brewing behind you.
Avoid all the chaos. That's the best way to put it. The first, call it maybe 15 drivers are 3 wide, all the way back to John McClear from Rollins College and Liberty University's Malachi Drake. Everybody from Dillon all behind single file. So I think 2 very clear schools of thought. Either we want the track position or we want to not be caught up in any incidents that happen ahead as they are 3 wide through the banks of Daytona.
3 wide for about 6 or 7 rows, and then you get back to Zach Sprouse, McClear, Malachi Drake, and some others that are kind of taking that little bit of a more conservative approach, single file behind this large pack of trucks. That again, this is what makes it so difficult is we get 3 wide and you see that neither lane is able to break away. You kind of stalemate in a way when it's 3 wide, that you see a little bit of movement here and there, but there's not one lane that's going to be truly dominant, that's going to be able to break away from all of these other lanes. As Daniel Nanny, you can see on board of him for the Ball State driver, currently right in that middle lane, running just inside the top 10, has been a strong College Series competitor throughout the last couple of years and looking to bring home another solid finish here. Again, so many points on the line, and I think when you are in these races, you have to take advantage, because when we go to Iowa, there's no guarantee, there's no reset, it's a complete reset, so you're not guaranteed a spot, you're not guaranteed the opportunity to make up some points, so you got to take advantage of it when you can, and I think that's why Logan Clampett is such a big favorite here, despite the fact that it's so much harder than it's been before to get to this point, yet here he is, even at a plate track, still showing the way.
I think a very fair and valid point there, no doubt about it, as Clamp has found his way to the front of this field, controlling that middle lane. And to your point, Blake, about lanes just not moving, and Taylor, I think it's worth making a note of this for later on as we go on board with John Hagan and Logan Clampett, the 2 leaders of this race on the inside and the outside lines. You think back to, I think a lot of the great takes on the 500 finishes, Kevin Harvick and Mark Martin in 2007 immediately comes to mind. Remember that coming out of 4, Martin was on the inside, Harvick was on the outside, but effectively in the middle of the racetrack. Harvick won the drag race. That outside line, especially coming to the start-finish line right here, usually able to nose ahead of the bottom. So if you're middle of 3, if you're top of 3, I kind of like your chances a little bit better if that holds all the way to the last lap. But that, Taylor Burris, is a very big if.
Well, I mean, if you think about that point you touched on, James, you think about how much speed you're losing when you're having to turn into that corner. I mean, Blake, I'm pretty sure you can agree with it. When you're having to turn a little more tighter on the bottom of the racetrack, you lose a little bit more of that speed compared to if you're middle or top, where you're not putting as much steering input on the car, which gives you that extra push, which is what we will see possibly come to fruition later on as we see Hagan now thinking about going up to that middle or top lane to throw the block on Clampett, as here comes Carson Powers, one of the most aggressive drivers here this past 2 weeks, showcasing, pushing his way up to the front of the field.
Well, and also what's tough about that bottom lane is that since you're not able to break away, you're always at the mercy of that middle and upper lane. The side draft is just strong enough in these trucks that you can bring back that inside lane if they ever do build up any type of run. And when you're the middle or top lane, you have control of that. You can run as tight on the rest of the field pretty much as you want. You can see right here as we go into turn 3, kind of a little bit of what we're talking about. A lot of room being given by the middle lane right now. They're not pinching down too much, but that third lane is where you have a lot of space, a lot of freedom now that can reach out to bite you. We saw it a number of times a week ago where drivers would get too high in that third lane. They'd scrape the wall, and that's when you get in really big trouble, because those trucks 3rd, 4th, 5th on in line, they can't see that happening in front of them. So it's a interesting balance here, but Clampett kind of giving a lot of room to that inside line, and the rest of the middle lane is kind of following his lead in regards to that.
He's giving room for the moment, but I'm not convinced that's going to last for the entirety of this race. Already a third of the way through. Here's a look on board with the Red Raider, representing Texas Tech University in Lubbock. This is Elijah Wells out of Decatur, Texas, and with a bit of a gap to John Forbes Jr. Wells, one of the few drivers that's decided to lay back out of that lead pack just a bit and stay down the inside should trouble befall everybody up there. And they just about had it. I held my breath. I think as a lot of drivers did in that moment through the trial. But Daniel Falkingham got a bad bump from, couldn't tell exactly who, but Falkingham was down on the apron and everybody in this lead pack checked up.
Absolutely, and I gotta say that would have been detrimental to see how that all plays out amongst them. And forward. So as we watch on here, we see Clampett now losing a little bit of touch of that trap. Ericsson with a big head of steam with help from Joseph to help him get side by side. But Sanchez trying to work with one of the top drivers in the eNASCAR College Series around on the middle lane to help him, but that's not working out in his favor.
You still have 3 lanes working. There's a little bit more spread out. Here's a look here. Look, Buckingham down low. Yeah, it just was not squared up. Could not tell. It was one of the UNOH drivers. Couldn't tell exactly who right off the replay, but there was a bad bump there. They went 4 wide. Go get a turn 1 for a split second.
And that's just incredible, getting out of shape right next to the apron. And I think that's a mixture of 2 things. One, we're at the end. We only have the most skilled drivers that are racing with us here at the end of this Clash at the Beach. But also the fact that you could check up knowing that a yellow flag, if something were to break out, that you're going to have that to your benefit. That wasn't exactly a luxury that the drivers who raced through up to this point in the first 16 rounds had, that if they saw smoke, you almost kind of had to drive at it and just hope you weren't involved in it with the fact that there were no yellows. So that's a big key right there, and I think how that all played out. But we were on that onboard that was well behind it, and everybody from drivers that were in the pack to outside of the pack did a tremendous job. You could hear the lift of the throttle out of those trucks bracing for that situation and allowing us to stay under green.
Going on board with Zach Sprouse, 3rd truck in line on the bottom behind Edward Sanchez and Benjamin White. So that sticks him roughly about 12th or so. Now make it 4 truck in line because Bradley Erickson has decided to pop out from the bottom to that middle lane. And Erickson is going to get the run past Logan Clampett to lead at halfway here. Already 50% through our final.
Curious to see how this all plays out now as we have reached the halfway. What have you learned? What can you take to the drawing board to make yourself ready to be in position for the money here as they work their way down the Daytona Superstretch once again? I'm really curious to see how that outside lane goes as Ericsson shuts the door and goes to the bottom in front of Clampett. He will lead the big train down into turn 3 as here comes Adam Garza with a big head of steam. Big time bobble though for White as he gets a little bit too much help from Sanchez as they work the middle lane.
Contact between White and Logan Clampett, middle of 3 there. That could have been very bad. As of now, it's not a major issue, but we're starting to see these trucks bobble and weave a little bit more in these lanes. Blake McCandless, and I think there's something to be said about patience beginning to run out.
I think you have a lot of those drivers that were riding single file that anticipated that something would happen before this point, before we got to the halfway point, because now the laps start to wind down and you start to kind of second guess yourself. You start to question, is something going to happen? Did I pick the wrong strategy? And you're going to see some more aggressive moves out of those drivers to maybe try to salvage something if nothing is to happen. But it's kind of something that you have to commit to the end, because as we get later and later in this race, drivers, all the little decisions they make, they're going to be more aggressive, giving those bumps if they're the 4th or 5th truck in line. And that's where we've really started to see a lot of issues break out over the course of the last week here at Daytona. So at this point, 14 to go, if you're in the back, you kind of just have to, I think, sit and hope something happens. But if you're not, yes, the temperature's building up, both literally and figuratively, and you have to be full out committed here, as Bradley Erickson is right now leading the inside lane.
But you have 2 options. It's either rip to that high line and go up there and see if you can't do something, or risk just being stuck down on the bottom of the middle lane and hope that something happens to the drivers ahead of you. That, I think, very much on the minds of some of these drivers towards the back of the field. But that outside line has done a decent job of staying up towards the front, to their great credit. Only 4 trucks up there, but they've consistently been near the top 10. Now getting a little bit of help. I see 1 truck behind Jeremiah Taylor. It's Jose Sildes Jr. who's decided to make it a 5-truck group in that 3rd and outside group.
Curious just watching on here as big run right here as Daniel Buckingham goes up into the 3rd lane. He feels like it's time for him to go and try to lead the outside lane and make a good run up towards the front of the field. Here comes the Demon of Daytona around that 3rd lane.
What kind of help does Daniel Falkingham get or not get? There goes Bradley Erickson now looking at the high line. Benjamin White dipping to the bottom, maybe making a move. Thinks better of it. Big shove there for Logan Clampett, middle of the drive. 12 laps to go. Erickson out ahead by maybe a truck length, getting a big push from White into turn 1.
Man, a lot of trucks getting out of shape. That Triton truck is stuck in the outside. They're going to go 4 wide, and they're going to try to basically dump him out of the pack. That is Adam Garza, free-falling, is able to collect it back up, but lost a ton of positions in doing so.
That killed that third lane just about. Jeremiah Taylor peeks out with help from Solis to try and go up there, but absolutely nothing going for those 2 trucks. Garza still trying to make it work, but nothing happening there. So Erickson in, then White, all in control of this. We've not had a green flag run this long in the tournament at all, as we are now double file working our way through the trioval. 11 laps to go. Erickson still out front.
Erickson doing everything he can to hold off the hard charger of Clampett. He's got some great help behind him. Of course, when he gets the chance to race in the ARCA series, you know you have to be careful for chaos that could be a brewing around you. And of course, not racing at this kind of level at Daytona, but did at Phoenix. Great effort from him. Curious to see, but here comes Falkingham and White with a big run as they work their way through 3 and 4.
Oh, they are now really shuffling spots in places. I saw John Hagan make a big move to the middle of the racetrack. Benjamin White now ahead. Look at the move, though, from Connor Trafari. He's got a big push from Daniel Nettie. They are working their way all the way to the front. They've got help from Carson Bowers. So the Boilermaker and the Cardinal going to the front. Trafari will lead entering turn 1.
Big moves being made here on the high side, and Daniel Nanny is trying to sustain and take those pushes from the Purdue Boilermaker and Carson Bowers. We've seen a lot of rivalries throughout the night, and there is certainly one right there amongst those institutions, as we are now 3 by 3, about 8 rows deep here at Daytona. And we saw it earlier the night that Carson Bowers was one of the most aggressive pushers throughout the semifinals, and now in the final round with 10 laps to go, coming around to 9, we see that again, and that can help and hurt that outside line that's trying to get rolling with field. Oh, and one truck flips in front of the field. Caution is out as the rest of the field scatters around with 9 to go, and Daniel Nanny, you could see relieved that he made it through.
That is a heart-in-throat moment for Daniel Nanny. My goodness, how close that was. He is... I think there's a little bit of disbelief there more than anything else, as Connor Trafari went up and over and flipped in the air in front of everybody in this field. We are under the first yellow flag of this final with 9 laps to go. It was a bad push from Bradley Erickson that ultimately sent Trafari flying, and Erickson and White got a pretty big piece of that as well.
All I could say was, for Daniel Nanny, his facial reaction, I mean, I've had that face before too, especially here at Daytona, but that was a little too close for comfort, and curious to see who will be the last remaining drivers that make it through this, as we see Falkingham along with Clampett. I did see, it looks like to be one of the Rutgers driver of Joseph as we take a look at the replay.
So we'll take the opportunity to look at the replay and see how this all unfolded. Eyes up on Bradley Erickson, the maroon and yellow machine, and then the green and white of Connor Trafari. That's where this all starts, Blake.
Just one, again, it's about 3 trucks just kind of all getting offset. That's where it's so difficult, especially in the tri-oval on the bottom, to try to get everybody lined up and formed. And this is the shot from Nanny. Remember, this truck in the lead flips in front of him. I think he goes underneath the 49er, and he just about did. He was able to cut down. That is a big moment right there. I think that warranted the reaction that we just saw out of Daniel Nanny.
Do not blame Nanny in the slightest whatsoever for the reaction that he had. As Clampett, look at this. I think if you keep it on the pace truck, just look out the corner of your screen. You can see Clampett, you can see Falkingham. These drivers already thinking about fuel conservation. You imagine a lot of the drivers at the back. I figured, Taylor, if you're in the back, come down pit road and make sure that you're good to go on fuel for the finish. But the drivers up the front will not want to give up their track position, and they, I would imagine, are going to stay out.
If I could get a better camera angle, I think there's a little bit of damage there to Logan Clampett's rear end of that Chevy Silverado there on the back end of the truck. So it might be a little hindrance right there, but so far I'll be curious to see how that'll play out for him. But once again, with Daniel Nanny, he's definitely bringing glory to the Cardinals here today as he's looking to try to make sure he can come out on top in the Sunshine State at Daytona.
So this now gets very interesting. Worth noting here, Malachi Drake, Bradley Erickson, Matthew Morton, Benjamin White, Jeremiah Taylor, Elijah Wells, and Connor Trifari all down pit road simultaneously. Those are all drivers who should be able to make multiple green-white checkers, given how late this caution is. So if we start getting some incidents, Blake, I think you have to at least file that little piece of information away, because there are drivers who could survive a rash of them, but not everybody at the front of this field, I think, could if we get to 3 or 4 of them.
Well, again, and taking full advantage of it. Again, in the Coke Series, where Falkingham and Clampett have competed before, you're not allowed to pace around on the apron, but not a penalty here in the College Series, and I think that's why you see them taking advantage of that fact to be able to try to save as much fuel as possible. And again, I think it's preemptive. I still don't think we're in a situation where it's going to be that close, but you'd rather be safe than sorry. You'd rather get out ahead of it and just make sure that no matter what, you have enough to get to the end. The one thing I'm worried about Clampett, though, you can kind of see it from this shot, he's got some right rear damage, and especially in these trucks, that's a killer, especially when you're in the situation he's in. When you're in the pack, you can kind of make it work. You can make some moves, but when you're leading a line and you have that type of damage, that's something that, one, is going to slow everybody down, and two, nobody's going to be willing or wanting to push that truck. So Clampett's going to be in a pretty tough situation here.
It's the double-edged sword, Taylor, I think, of being as good as Clampett is. When you are the defending champion and there's a good shot there coming out of turn 4, you get a better look at the damage. But when you are the champion, that does sort of put a target on your back. And Clampett's someone who can bring you to the front of the field, but Clampett's also someone who can take the scholarship money and the points away from you. So if you're one of these other drivers, Taylor, what do you do? How do you handle a situation like that?
You got to show a little bit of aggressiveness, a little bit of patience. If you want to be in that top 6 to guarantee yourself a shot at the scholarship money, as well as also get that much valuable points for the end of the season, of course, which we'll reach later on in the second half of the semester, it's going to be critical. You got to be able to find your way. And one driver who I'm going to be watching here in these final 6 laps is going to be Bowers. We saw how aggressive he was all of week 1, all of the LCQs, and as well as also in those semifinal races. He is going to be one that will push the limits. He's got the pedigree. He's got what it takes. I think he could be that one that will showcase that aggressiveness, but also be ready to be patient and not attack until that time is right.
Blake, any drivers you're keeping an eye on here as we get set for this restart?
I think you got to be 3 or 4 rows, first 3 or 4 rows, if you really want a shot at this. So I look kind of around the Sanchez, Bowers, that kind of contingent of drivers right there that are maybe 5th through 10th as the drivers that could try to make something happen. Again, it's going to be really tough, I think, for Clampett to try and get everybody to trust that he can keep that truck up at the front with some of the damage that he has. We'll see if everybody else is willing to go with him. But Sanchez, Bowers on back for maybe 2 rows or so. Zach Sprouse in the George Mason truck as well. UNOH involved in that. I think that's where you got to look for somebody that could try to make something happen here with 5 to go.
Will the drivers trust Logan Clampett? I think there are many schools of thought, both one way and another, on that particular point alone, and there are many that we still have to solve at Daytona. Pace car is off, green flag is out, 5 laps to go. Nettie did not get a good push to Falkingham. Falkingham did not get going well himself. as Logan Clampett's going to be able to jump to the front. How does Joseph handle this? He'll stick in line behind Falkingham for the moment, and now watch the monster run that's going to come out of turn 2 for Falkingham and Nanny and company. Just as they were lined up at Talladega at the end of that race in the spring, the Daniels are together once again.
Oh, trouble off of turn 2. One driver goes around onto the bottom of the racetrack. Caution will come back out. Carson Bowers, unfortunately, tried to be too aggressive to throw the block on Zach Sprouse, which caused another big one here at Daytona.
A wreck in the middle of the pack. That means we are likely looking at some form of green-white checker. Blake McCandless, here we go. For the drivers that were worried about fuel, this is not going to help their case.
Again, I think still in a situation where you're probably okay to get through one, maybe two. It's the third one that I would be really concerned about trying to make it to the end. As again, it was, I believe, Zach Sprouse and Carson Bowers, the two trucks that were in the middle of the pack, that made that contact that brought out this latest yellow. As again, drivers that were trying to maybe go up the middle and somebody trying to block it, not quite sure exactly how it transpired, and thought that maybe again it would be enough off the racetrack. Daytona is one of these tracks, particularly in iRacing, where if it's on the apron, it's very unlikely that the game, which is where the cautions are being thrown for this, are likely to come out. So I was wondering if we were going to stay green. We do have a look at it. Watch Bowers, the Purdue Boilermaker, as Sprouse looking high, looking low. Bowers tries to cover, and Sprouse is there in the middle.
It's that aggressive kind of racing that got Bowers the win, especially in the Group 1 second round race. But it is that level of aggression that has cost him here. Trying to get back in line after no one went with him. Going to the outside. Good look there from Yershak, and just how close it was for Jose Solis Jr. and company to get out of that unscathed.
Yershak clutch as soon as the caution came out. You could hear it on that onboard.
Valid point there as well. You can hear a lot of these drivers not even rolling in the throttle. A lot of people clutching and just trying to save as much fuel as they can. And now this will become a concern for some of these drivers, especially if we get multiple green-white checkers, how tight this is going to be for them. How close this will be and how much damage these drivers may or may not pick up. I think that, too, also worth keeping in mind. As these drivers take a listen here to Logan Clampett. Yeah, I think worth noting. We'll lay out here, but you can hear him clutching, not even pushing the engine, not even trying to use fuel.
I mean, you got to do everything you can in order to save as much fuel and be prepared for those green-white checkers. We are crossing into that territory where we could see the caution could affect drivers' fuel mileage, as this will be a natural green-white checker. So this means that we're not into overtime yet, but we are on the verge of that if another caution were to come out.
See where it sits. Lights are still on the pace vehicle, so we may actually get extended a lap beyond. We might be running into overtime territory. We'll see exactly how timing and scoring will work things out. But as it stands, Clampett is scored as your leader, then Joseph, and Daniel Falkingham will be the second truck in line, especially on the inside. And we saw, Blake, how being on the outside just hurt that whole outside line, whether or not it was Danny or Falkingham. So if you're on the bottom, how much does that help?
I think it helps a lot when you're not able to go green, especially. And now we are into overtime territory, which is a little bit different here on the iRacing side of things versus real life, where if we get around to the white flag, if the caution comes out before that, we'll re-rack it and try it once again. If we get to the white flag, doesn't matter what happens on the last side. We could crash everybody. We will still have a race to the checkered flag, since safety, not so much of a concern. So that's the situation here. And again, I think exactly what Clampett wanted, because again, I think if we do get up to speed, he's going to struggle there with the damage. But we haven't got up to speed yet, and he's still your leader. 3
attempts at a green-white checker finish. So If we get a yellow on that third one, we will freeze the field at the moment of caution, and the race will be official. But we have to get there first, and I would say that history suggests, Taylor Burris, we're probably going to have a good shot at using all three of these green, white checkers.
It's always a very high possibility. We've seen it time again, 3 attempts, but maybe due to the fact that we already whittled that field down significantly already with those last 2 cautions, it could change it up a little bit. We'll wait and see, but with how much clutching we're seeing that front row doing, that's what's going to concern me a little bit, to where we could possibly see another attempt of a green, white checker. Who is going to make it in on fuel at the end?
Can you make it on fuel at the end? Have you been clutching and coasting enough? There's a look at Daniel Falkingham. Big fan on in the background, trying to cool him down, trying to get another College Series win at Daytona. No driver in the history of this series has ever won 2 races at the World Center of Racing. There, a look at Cal State Fullerton's Logan Clampett, the defending College Series champion. And then Edward Sanchez, also been top 5, top 10 for a good chunk of this, hanging out in the 4th position when we get going on this restart. As clouds have come over Daytona, just the same here, so a little bit cooler racetrack and surface. Might tighten up things ever so slightly, but this being a drafting track, handling not necessarily the most important of characteristics. What matters here, above all else, is the opportunity to go space after that scholarship money and take home the clash on the beach. Logan Clampett and Joseph, the 2 drivers to lead us back to green flag racing as we begin green, white checker attempt number 1. Off we go, racing one more time at the World Center of Racing, and Joseph and company got an incredible restart. They got a great jump there on Logan Clampett.
Field works their way, building up speed. Already a 3rd lane is starting to form with Garza leading it. Now he'll duck back into line. Just 2 by 2 by 2, about 6 rows deep, as we see the Texas Tech driver of Wells trying to get that 3rd lane going, but to no avail as they head down the Daytona Superstretch.
Bit of confusion, I think, between those drivers, Blake McCandless, as they try and get the 3rd lane going into 3.
So they're going to have to get it formed up very quickly, but right now, no takers. Remember, Clampett's got damage, so he's got the entire bottom line stacked up right behind him. You can see Falkingham has nowhere to go. Can Joseph try to muster some momentum to try a challenge here? It looks like we're going to get back to the white flag. This race is official when we get back to the start-finish line. White flag and another lap to hold on for Logan Clampett and Joseph.
Taylor Burris, here they are in 1 and 2.
Side by side as they work their way through. Joseph on the outside, Clampett on the inside. Who is going to have what it takes to win in glory here at Daytona? Big push from Falkingham, big bobble from Joseph. Contact around, that will collect Clampett. It's now a 3-wide race as they head into 3. More drivers end over end for Sanchez and Falkingham. Who will survive the chaos?
Connor Yarashak he's got Benjamin White behind him, and no help just further back as they continue to wreck in the middle of 3 and 4. Benjamin White trying to keep the trophy in the state of Florida. Yarashak going left and right to hold him off. And the University of Calgary's Connor Yarashak takes the win on the drafting track and takes home the class on the beach. Yarashak wins the 2nd tournament of the 2025-26 eNASCAR College iRacing Series. There was an opportunity for Benjamin White to make a potential move. Just not enough help at the end of it, Blake McCandless.
It's tough to dissect exactly all that happened there on that final lap. I don't even know where he crossed the start-finish line when we took the white flag. I mean, he just came out of nowhere. Oh, what a crazy ending to this race, where the field almost got flipped on its head entirely on that last lap. And yeah, Benjamin White just could not find the help necessary to try and challenge him there at the end.
And Connor Yarashak pulls onto the front stretch at Daytona, and Yarashak take home the honors and tonight's Logitech G winning moment, brought to you by Logitech G, the official wheel and pedals of the eNASCAR College iRacing Series. And what a job there, Taylor Burris. He parks it right on the front stretch.
Absolutely, as we saw him, and I gotta say, when he was working his way through, a great drive for him, absolutely incredible. I don't know how he survived it, but he did it, and of course, great drive for White, bringing home a good finish for the Florida native.
Let's see how he survived it here. Yerashak is the 5th truck in line on the inside here as we get a look at the incident between Falkingham and Clampett and Joseph and company. Actually, it was the Joseph push that took out Clampett, and then Sanchez gets turned, and then Falkingham got turned there going into 3.
Well, I will say,
this is exactly what White didn't need to have happen. He was tandemed up, but again, no help from the George Mason or Ball State driver behind him, and Yerashak just had to play defense all the way to the checkered flag.
Move to the left, move to the right, made the rear of that truck as wide as he possibly could, and Connor Yerashak takes the clash at the beach and might just have the unofficial points lead as well. We'll check on that in a little bit, but Yerashak, White, Nanny, Sprouse Jafari, and Logan Clampett all going home with scholarship money this evening. But Yerashak top honors, Taylor Burris.
absolutely for Yerashak. Connor Trafari makes a good run for the UNCC team as the 49ers get themselves with the best finish over the University of Northwestern Ohio as well with a top 5 finish. Dylan Alt and Matthew Morton also rounding out the top 10.
Jose Solis Jr. Again, a lot of these names, again, they came back to the start-finish line well afterwards. I mean, look, all the way down to 20. If you're seeing 31 seconds, that just shows you the magnitude of the amount of drivers that were involved in this wreck. Falkingham, who got turned in front of the field, still rebounded for a 16th place finish.
Falkingham had the opportunity there on the last lap, didn't quite have the luck go his way. And then look at some of these names: Forbes, Shelley, McClear, Olsen, and Hagan. The last 3, I don't even think, had the opportunity to make it back to the line. They were so damaged and caught up in all of the calamity that popped up on the final lap of this clash at the beach. But it is Connor Yerashak, the Canadian representing the Dinos of the University of Calgary, that takes home top honors tonight. He is with Taylor Burris.
And Connor, you return once again to victory lane for the eNASCAR College Series, and you did it in style. Walk us through it.
I don't even know what happened. I just stayed bottom and somehow slipped through it all, and then I just had to block to the line with how this package is and having to come through the LCQ. I knew it was going to be tough to get up front, so I kind of just rode in the back to avoid any early carnage, and then went at the end. And I talked before the last restart that I think like my best bet's probably just to stay on the bottom, so when the wreck happens, I can try to get through. And sure enough, I mean, they just all blew each other up on the last lap, and I slipped through literally perfectly. And I don't even know what to say. I'm lost for words with that one.
Well, you get a few weeks off to settle it and think about that, but we head to Iowa for the conclusion of the fall semester. Another unique track. What's your thoughts going there?
I don't know what to really make of Iowa because it's got that new scan with the new asphalt in the bottom 2 lanes. So I have a feeling it's going to be hard to pass and pretty gripped up. But, I mean, I'm off to a really good start, so I'm just going to try to keep it rolling.
Well, we wish you the best of luck, and we'll see you in November for the Harvest Cup at Iowa.
Thank you, guys.
Connor Yerashak claims the clash on the beach, and as I suspected, Blake McCandless also takes control of the points as well. Logan Clampett finished in 6th, so didn't lose too many points, but that gap feels like if we come down to it at Homestead Miami, that could be the difference right there.
Well, and this was going to be a race where the championship picture we knew would change a lot. How about Dylan Basin, your winner at Charlotte, still remains 11th in points. But yes, that was a really important one to make up ground on drivers that we know are going to continue to be strong when we go to some short tracks, when we go to some other 1.5 miles. And yet, at the end of it all, I mean, you still have your big names up there in the top 10. Morton, Nanny, Clampett, John Forbes Jr., Jose Solis, Adam Garza, several others up in the top 10 that we expect. But again, a lot of this, as you can see, the separation in points is going to come down to, can you make all of these features? Because all Yerashak has to do is miss Iowa or any other race, and everybody else is right back in the ballgame.
I think you look at Dylan Basin as a great example of that. Won at Charlotte, did not even make the finals at Daytona, dropped from points leader to 11th, and is now 35 back of Connor Yarashak. So a whole bunch of work that Basin is going to have to do. And now the plate track and the variations of it, gone for the most part. Done, dusted, finished. Very different setup coming up for us in November when we turn our attention to Iowa and the Harvest Cup, Taylor.
Absolutely. We're going to go to a little bit of a short track racing style, of course, not like what we're seeing at Martinsville in the spring, but still it's going to provide some unique challenges. And of course, if you think about it, it's the newly rescanned Iowa, so it's not going to be as bumpy. It's going to be a little bit more smoother for these drivers to negotiate. So it could throw a little bit of a curveball for some of our competitors going into this event.
The good news, Blake McCandless, I think about Iowa, you have progressive banking in the corners. You have a ton of different lanes you can run. The bad news, you have a ton of different lanes that you can run, and sometimes you can step on somebody else's lane, and that can lead to a lot of problems at Iowa, too.
Well, it's made a little bit easier by the fact that you mentioned it's the new rescan of Iowa, so you don't have all the way to the outside because I didn't repave all the way to that outside, and even testing for the Coke Series race that we had here, you cannot run on the old asphalt. So it narrows up the racetrack just a little bit. Still plenty of grooves to run, even within the patches of asphalt that have been laid down, but a huge challenge for these College Series drivers. I'm thinking of restarts, too, because guess what? You're restarting on those straightaways that aren't paved. That's going to be tough because they're so bumpy. That part of the surface is really abrasive. So interesting to see how that plays out when we take the trucks there in a couple weeks.
Yes, the Harvest Cup comes to Iowa Speedway. It's our third tournament this season for the eNASCAR College iRacing Series. The time attack opens next Tuesday, October 28th. That runs through next Thursday. After that, November the 6th. Week 1 of competition will be on November 12th. Week 2 of competition on November 19th. 7 p.m. Eastern start times for those on eNASCAR.com/live. And if you want to see all the action, Iowa, or jump in on it, head on over to the Play Versus website and learn more information about the eNASCAR College iRacing Series. For Drew Adamson and our wonderful crew on the production of this show from iRacing Studios, Massachusetts, for the partners of this series at eNASCAR and the Play Versus College League and Logitech G, and for my colleagues in the booth, Taylor Burris and Blake McCandless, I am James Bryant. Thank you so much for watching the Clash on the Beach at Daytona International Speedway Round 2 of the eNASCAR College iRacing Series. We look forward to seeing you next month at Iowa for the Harvest Cup. Congratulations to the winner of tournament number 2, Connor Yarashak from the University of Calgary.